Hello and welcome back to the Game Dev Show. I'm here with Jason and Andrew. Today we're going to be talking about a couple different interesting game dev topics that I've got in the description. Check them out. Also, check out Andrew's link to his channel down below. Make sure that you go subscribe. And Jason's. We were talking quite a bit about what they're doing on their channels before the show. So I recommend that you guys go click on them, go subscribe, and then come back over and let's start the discussion. So lots of things to talk about. I want to talk about some design stuff, pathfinding. Maybe if your eye shows up, it'll turn more into pathfinding stuff, and a couple other things, and then dive into questions. And I also want to talk a little bit about the matchmaking process for mastermind groups. We've got a big announcement for that. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, make sure that you say hi in chat, subscribe, share, and go ahead and enter the giveaway we're about to kick off. So welcome, Andrew. Welcome, Jason.
Hello.
How have you guys been this week?
Doing well.
Good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So first, I wanted to just make sure that everybody does go subscribe to Andrew's channel. I dropped a link down below. You've been doing a lot of streams on your RPG development lately.
I have.
I've been seeing you kind of like kick that up, and it's been relatively regular, putting in new features for just general stuff. Or are you into combat mostly right now?
I'm
key focus.
It's just moving every ball forward a little bit and then moving to another section. So many of them kind of require the other things, and so I'm taking one step forward here, then one step forward there. So recently I've been doing closer to combat, where the players are attacking the bad guys. The bad guys aren't yet attacking the players, but we're getting there. And so yeah, every stream is just moving things just a little bit closer and working on some system or optimizing another system or adding something new or so on.
Nice. It's fun watching the progress.
It was exciting for me to see arrows, bows and arrows. There's something satisfying. I mean, admittedly, Skyrim's bow and arrow system wasn't particularly great, but it was still satisfying. Like I did remember, I used to play. I love playing a lot of stealth, so I had my double daggers and I had my bow and arrow and I had the special Daedric armor I was invisible when I crouched, and so I was full on just like sneak attacks. And so when I saw you get the arrows in, I'm like, yes, good, good.
Yeah, and then the sound effects. The sound effects always, without sound effects, it's just not as fun. So I always try to add sound effects as soon as I can, and that just sells it for me.
Yeah, sound's one of the things I want to add to my little game I've been working on in this next week. Right now it's totally silent, and I want to add voiceovers and sound effects and stuff. I've got a couple ideas there for ways that the characters can kind of talk to the player and demand that the player give them orders or something like that. I want to make it a little bit goofy. So
are you going to go the Andrew route and set up the replica studio voices, or are you going to record stuff yourself?
I will probably just go with replica voices and just get it, because I don't want to try to record a bunch of female voices and other weird ones. Like I could probably do like one weird old voice, but I don't think I could do a whole game's worth. And I want to have like a different voice for each character and have at least like 8 or 10 different characters. So
yeah.
Well, if you happen to have a leprechaun, let me know. I can.
They're using replicas probably faster too in the end than doing all the recording, cutting it up, re-recording because you decide you didn't like your voice that time. It's just easier just to use replica.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought too. And with the amount that's free, it's like free or cheap. This is what we're talking about, by the way. Anybody that hasn't seen it, it's Replica Studios. You just go in and pick the character that you want to use, type in the text, and then it spits it out. And it says you get 30 minutes of free voice credit. But if you think about like when you're doing little voiceovers in a game, that's like almost 30 minutes with the voiceover is more than I can type out myself. So until you're at like a real studio size, that's more than enough more than you're probably going to use. So that's why I like it.
Yeah, most lines are like 4 or 5 seconds. And as long as you don't like constantly keep recomputing it because you tweak it over and over, every time you tweak it, you're going to use 4 or 5 seconds. But if as long as you're not doing that, then you can spit out, 5 different voices and get only 30 seconds used,
I will admit that does stress me out. I mean, I know how it works, like mechanically in terms of compute power. So like I can't judge them for their pricing model. It makes perfect sense. but it is extremely stressful when every time you're like, oh, the inflection was wrong there, let me change a word, and you're burning another 5 seconds with every just like little tweak. It's like just
It's true. Sometimes with that, you have to change the spelling of words because they say something that's just like, that's not how that word is pronounced.
You have to do a phonetic, full phonetic explanation.
Yeah.
I will
But
say
for
though, like,
context, if you have to pay, it's not that pricey.
No, it's
$25
not.
for an additional 4 hours. It's
like,
not
I'll put it this way. I think I have like 12 hours banked, and like you have no idea. Like a script, right? A voice line is a few seconds, so a minute will do you for like, again, a minute of footage. So it's imagine hours, right? And they're particularly nice with their referrals. So don't give them that link. Give them a link with a referral, so people will get an extra 30 minutes, I think, for free if you use referral. You can always use mine if you want.
I have a referral link. I just forgot to send it. Just go get it. I don't need free stuff. I probably have enough credit. Like I said, I'll never catch up to the many hours of free credit I probably already have.
I do think I genuinely enjoy working with it as a first pass, and I was talking to them about it in their Discord once, and they said that they're going to have an option at some stage that if you like the voiceover, that they will have you be able to hire the original voice actor for the character models that you've used, so you can like correct some of the more dodgy ones or get more specific enunciations and things. Which I think is a really great feature, because you could send them the entire script as you've written it with your inflections, and then just get the voice actors to do like a professional version of exactly the same cut. No mess, no fuss, no back and forth debates. It's much more efficient,
That makes a lot of sense as like, prototype with the AI and then hire the same people. It just makes a lot of sense. You're kind of, I don't know, is it cutting out? It's not cutting out the middleman. You're kind of doing a lot of the work for the voiceover artist themselves, I suppose. Because you're kind of, I don't know. It's neat. I like
the other side of it too is you can record your own voice. So I did it myself. I have a me voice in one of the things, so that I can record as me, and it's this robotic version of my own voice, which is very funny to hear. It's like, hello, my name is Jason. I am. It's very interesting. So I recommend giving that a try. You just have to read a script, keep it equal, whatever tone you want. The one downside from a making your own voices perspective is it is tonal. So the reason you have in the drop down for replica, like angry version or sad version or whatever, they are actually entire new voices. They're just the voice actor did the entire thing in a angry way or in a happy way. So if you did want your own version of yourself being able to do different voice lines, you would have to read whatever it is, like 30 minutes of thing each time in each mood. But you do it once and you have forever a voice script for yourself, which is kind of cool.
That sounds cool. I feel like I should do that now. I mean, I don't know why, because I can just record myself anyway, but it still.
Well, hey, if you're lazy, you can just fill in, type it out, get the first pass, and then go in and tidy it up later.
And I think they do have an API that works live, so you could have voices in your game or in your project that speak out what people type if you want to be dangerous and live dangerously. Maybe have a strong bad word filter there, but so technically you could have an MMO or something where you hear other people talk. It would get expensive, I think, but it could be fun.
Sorry, I had to sneeze there. We had a super chat. Really positive things are happening. Very much thanks to you. Can't wait to share it. I don't know what those positive things are, but I'm excited to hear it. So awesome. Congrats. I hope it all goes well. By the way, everybody who's with us live, if you haven't entered the giveaway, all you have to do is pick a race in the class, just like everybody else is in chat. Once you do that, you'll be entered to win a 1-year JetBrains rider license that we'll kick it off, and everybody will kind of fight to the death, and the last one standing gets the license. So if you wanted to win that, just make sure that you pick your race and class in chat. There is a file I updated down below, by the way, that has all of the stats for the races and classes. It's a Unity package that you can pull into an empty Unity project and see all of the data. At least it should work. I haven't actually retested it, but it worked last time. It's got the scripts for the data and the scriptable objects. So you should be able to open it and look at them. If not, then you'll have to randomly guess. but I think you can take a look at that data and check it out. Not that it's going to help you too much to know what's going to win. Somebody says, I still have no idea what Writer does, but boy, do I like free stuff. Bakara Industries. Just really quickly, I want to say what Writer does. It's a code editor for not just Unity, but for a whole bunch of different languages that allows you to. Let me drag it over here. Show you what it looks like. It looks like this. Ah, I can't. Okay, I screwed that all up. Let's see if I can. What's the hotkey to? I'm terrible at computers. Let's see. Take this one and we do a maximize. There we go. So it's a code editor, kind of like Visual Studio or Mono Develop was, or VS Code, but it's got a bunch of really handy Unity specific things that it does that I really, really, really like. Like if we go to let me go to my game settings. Open up my game settings file and we look at the scriptable objects here. So this right
is
here,
the most valuable feature. That alone is worth the price of Writer right there.
yeah, and what he's talking about is this right here. So this is a scriptable object that there's one of in my project that's got the settings for it. You can see the default values, and here you can see what it's actually set to. It's actually set to these values in the editor somewhere. And I can even click here and open it up, and I think I could get to it in the scene view if I
Yeah,
had
it'll jump straight to the scene. Yeah, it should do if you click that one.
Yeah, oh, there it goes. It just popped up on a different screen. So it popped up over here. If I drag it over, you can see it actually went over and it selected it and showed me where that value was. So it's essentially a code editor, but it has a lot of these little things in there. And it's just a combination of like dozens of these little nice add-on extra features that make it better for Unity, that make it so great. So it's not like there's one specific thing. It's just a giant combination of neat little helpful things that I really love. So that's why I recommend it. I use it myself and I pay for my license because I love it so much. So I recommend everybody try it out. They have
and
free
I'm a convert
versions.
too. Like I was. This is coming from somebody who used Visual Studio for about 12 years. Like I've used it for years on client projects. I was refused to switch to Writer, and then everyone I know is switching to it. I'm like, oh, I have to learn something new. I've been using this for so long. I don't want to lose all my shortcuts and auto completions. But I did, and within 6 months, I was like, well, what's Visual Studio? I don't know. I'm a Writer user. I have no, and that's it. I'm sold for life. As I said, that little feature. If you don't know why that's so valuable, I think we've all done this. If you make a public variable in Unity and you write a value in it, and then you have it in the script, it says int age equals whatever, 25. If you go into the inspector and you slide the value to anything else, it switches to a different number. And you could be debugging for hours where you keep looking at the script. It still says 25. You're running stuff. It's not working correctly. You don't know why. And you'll waste hours of your time because what's actually happened is it serialized a different version of the value in the inspector. And again, it sounds like a small thing, but I can honestly tell you I have lost. It doesn't happen very often, but if you're like in the middle of a long programming session, you've been programming for 9 hours, and you get this one weird bug and you can't figure it out and you're too tired and whatever, I've lost hours. And so over the course of years in Visual Studio, working on Unity projects, I probably lost about 12 hours in just various debugging sessions trying to find some version of a serialization issue in Unity. So I got at least that much value back, and that's one of the tiny features in Writer. There's so many other features, but that one in particular, like I felt so much pain from that one problem that having this solved has been, night and day.
When I first started with Unity, I was using the Unity script and Mono Develop, I think it was, on it just came with Unity, so I just used that, which was better than the text editing software I'd been using when doing web pages. So there's that. And I thought that was pretty snazzy. And people were like, "Oh no, the two languages are the same. There's no real difference." And I found out later, after Unity dropped Unity script, that there was absolutely a difference. And Mono Develop had things like autocomplete and suggestions for C#, but they didn't have it for the Unity script. So this whole time, I didn't even know that was a feature that existed in the world. And so I now I use Writer, and I'm looking at Jason's thing there, and I'm thinking, well, how do I turn that on? Because I don't have that. It's not working on my Writer. So clearly I haven't poked enough buttons. I need to look at more of the buttons. There's a lot of buttons and a lot of things that it can do that I just like. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not clicking around. I don't know.
There's so many features. And like, I was actually saying this to Jason earlier, is that I have apps I've been using for years. There's probably about 20 applications that make it to every new computer I install. And some of those apps I use for one very specific thing, and I've never bothered to look at what their preferences and options are. And so I've been going through for the last, I'd say, week and a half, just like poking each of the apps that I use all the time and go, what else can it do? Can I fix or automate some of the stuff that bother me about this application? And I realized, like, one of them, it's a small example, OBS. I was saying when you record in OBS, it spits out files in MKV. And if you don't know why it does that, MKV is from a reading perspective, you can seek to any point in an MKV file, and the benefit of that means that it can work as a stream. So if you corrupt, quote unquote, an MKV file by stopping the recording, or the internet drops or something goes wrong, you don't lose the file. You just lose the bottom portion, but you keep the actual everything up to that point. If you record in something like an MP4, you'll corrupt the whole file if it breaks. You can't, because it's the way the header data works and whatever. So long story short, recording is often done into an MKV container, but you don't want to use MKV because it's actually slower to work with. There's different issues or whatever. But anyway, in my case, Premiere doesn't work well with MKVs the way I want to. So I do a quick and dirty switch to MP4, and I use that. But here's the thing. You have to remux it. Remux is the name for switching from that format to the other. And there's an option in OBS. So my process has been for a very long time, press record, do the recording, then go to the options, show recordings, remux, open the folder, select the files, click remux, finish the thing, delete all the MKVs, and now I've got my MP4s. It's not end of the world. It's just a little thing I would do at the end of every recording session for all the videos. I learned in advanced options, there's a checkbox that says remux recordings. And now when I stop recording, when it's finished, it just does the thing. That's immediately. It's like how much, it's not a lot, but like little bits of my life have been stolen with this tiny process that I've been doing over and over. And so that's something I'm trying to do more of, is I realize there's lots of little things that I do that bother me. It's like, well, why do I keep doing it this way? Is there ways I can make it a bit easier, you know?
Totally. So it's those little bits, a minute here and a minute there.
I just linked in your Replica Studios referral code to Jason.
Yes,
so
and by the way, so that's not just selfish, because I do get some extra time for doing that. But I would say the same thing if anybody is wanting to play with it, and I really suggest you do, because for no other reason than it's genuinely fun to write something and then switch between 10 different people saying the line. There's like a pirate guy who's my personal favorite, but there's like a load of different fun voices. And yeah, it costs you nothing. They give you a certain amount of time for free. And if you use my referral link, we both get an extra, I think it's 30 minutes. So feel free to give it a try.
Yeah, I definitely would check it out.
Yeah, and what's nice about them too, the last thing I'll say on them is that they are aimed at game. Like they're doing other things too. They do voiceovers for stories and stuff, but they're aiming at target audience for game developers, where there's other AI voice things out there, but Replica is specifically targeting game developers where others are not. And so there's going to be value there with, hopefully more future Unity integrations and such. I think they have one already. I don't know how. I didn't like using it myself because the file names were coming in all gibberish, and I wanted them to be more organized, but they've got a Unity integration already, so it's only a matter of time before that's really cool.
Yeah, I had the same thing with the file name. So I was like, oh, well, I want to rename all these. I was like, I'll just export them and drag them into the folder. So, but yeah, I figured that eventually that'll become super simple to be able to just drop it in there with some preview of it. I mean, they know what you're typing, so it can just be like the text of it or something. I don't know. There was a question about setting writer to show the current editor values. They're wondering how you set that. I didn't do anything special to do that.
No, see, what I'm guessing that is a lot of people don't realize that actually, if you go to the package manager, there's plugins that are in a default empty project for the editors you're using. And so for some of us, we've automated it already just by the nature of having it installed. It will automatically switch to Writer as our editor, and it'll install the Writer integration. So if you don't have the Writer integration in Unity project and you don't have it set up correctly for both sides, it won't connect. So just make sure in your Unity project that you do have the specific JetBrains Writer editor integration there.
It looks like there's actually an update for for it that I don't have. I'm missing an update from recent. I need to grab that later, or at least in this project.
I've got it, but I also don't have what Jason has, so I'm not sure. There might be some more to it.
It's probably your integration right here is out of date. because this is out of date because this is an older project and I haven't updated it. So this is
I just
there's
checked
a
that.
version update. You
I've
probably
got
just
the
have
latest one
updates.
there. But
What's that?
Again, same thing in Writer. Writer has a plugin you have to install for Unity Deep Integration there too. So make sure they're good. Now, if you installed Writer with when they give you the options of components, you can install with the Unity integration. But if you didn't hit that checkbox, you'll have to install it manually.
Let me see if I can get that over to that screen. Hold on. There we go. So here, I've been using the hotkey that I just learned in chat. So yeah, the update button for Writer is right here. So I've got an update for this available too. I try to update these relatively regularly, but if they get out of date, everything kind of falls apart. So you got to make sure that you keep it up to date.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Dan saying if you're like him and update regularly, check the package manager for updates too, because you can update your Unity version and you might need to grab some newer packages to have everything work. And that happens not just with that, but with other things too. I found not just with Writer.
And also, as I said in not my last video, the video just before that, where I talked about the DLLs and how they function in Unity, everything in that package manager is something more to be compiled, built into a DLL, and included in your project. So I will regularly remove stuff. Like, for example, I will literally remove Rigid Body 2D from a 3D project because I don't need that. I don't need the entire DLL that included Rigid Body 2D stuff to build. Now, there's a caveat to doing that, which is if some assets haven't been written correctly, which, from my opinion, which haven't supported some kind of preprocessor directive. I'm looking at you, Dutwain. You specifically will have to go in and edit some of their scripts if you've removed things like Rigid Body 2Ds from your project. So I don't recommend everyone do that unless you're comfortable with like editing scripts. But I will say, in general, have a look at what's in the package manager. And if you're not using stuff, remove the stuff you're not using, just as a general good practice.
Yeah, I could probably remove the Visual Studio editors. I don't actually have it installed since I updated Windows, and a couple other things in here. If I was cleaning this thing up, I don't want to break anything now though. We got a giveaway running. So, by the way, if you haven't entered the giveaway, make sure that you choose a race and class in chat, and you'll be entered to win. We'll kick it off in a little bit, and you can win a copy of Writer. It's a thing we've been talking about this whole time. So, do you guys want to take some questions, or do you want to talk about some of the topics that I wanted to bring up today, which were balance, pathfinding, and camera controls?
We can start with the topic and then take some questions on the topic, then move to a different topic, take some questions on the topic.
Cool. Okay, well, let's start with the easiest one, which is the camera controls. And this is really just a more of a theoretical discussion. I just kind of want to talk about what you guys think would look good, what would work well, what makes sense for game camera controls for something like this. So I've got can you guys see? Yeah, it's up here on the screen. You've got this game set up, and right now I've got it set up with, let's see, one human and one bot. I'm going to press play. Let me make sure that this goes to a bigger screen so you guys can kind of fully see it. And the way that this is set up, so imagine bigger scale, the multiplayer, maybe it's 4 or 8 or 100 players, however many people on whatever size map. So you're going to get in, join a lobby, pick a game, hop in, and then go to the first stage of the battle, which would be like picking your characters. So right now I've got a placeholder character selection where you can go click on the different characters, check out which one you want, and then place it where you want. So you can pick 3 of them. I can take the spider, the healer, and this little mummy dude. And then once I'm done, all the other guys right now just temporarily die. And then the AI will put out its guys. And then I can move my characters and give them all destinations. And then it'll switch over to the next state. So it goes into a moving state. And then after that, it'll go into a fighting state and then back into like a direction selecting state. You can see, look at the pathing. Watch that. That's why pathfinding was on my list. I fucked something up. So this is kind of the general setup that I've got right now. And while it works, I'm not a huge fan of the camera setup or just like the general kind of look and feel of it. The moving and selecting, I think like it makes a lot of sense to have a top-down view for selecting so you can see where you're going. Moving, I'm not 100% sure that I like this view with the camera moving around over it. But I do like the idea of being
I
able
admit
to
it makes me feel a bit crazy. I'm not a fan of cameras that kind of do that lock drive control, you know.
Yeah, I don't really like it either. I want to be able to show it, but I also kind of want to be able to show like Fog of War, so you can't see, all the enemy characters, and you can see some points of interest. It goes on to the game balancing part. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I guess here, let me just speed these guys up.
Well, I like the angle you have there when it's idling is my favorite. I would literally keep it there and then have an orbit control off the center of the map.
You could also do a thing where you keep the kind of focus of the camera like you're doing, but let the user control the angle of the height. So they can go top down, they can go more of a shallow angle, and but it's the camera still focusing on the same thing no matter where you are.
I like that idea too, giving them more of the orbit control. I wanted to show you this next part because they're going to go into fighting, and then it's going into the fight camera, which I also don't like. But this is a bug, obviously. It's good when it goes to the next guy that actually fights. It should show it. I don't really like this camera view, but I want something kind of like this that shows like the player and the target. At least that's what I was thinking, or something that maybe highlights it. If you have full control over it, then something that kind of calls out like this is the next attack that's going to happen, so you can kind of.
See, I actually do like that one. That's I like the because this gives me major battle chess vibes, right? Because I used to play a lot of the. There was the Star Wars battle chess, and so whenever there was the combat, the camera would zoom in, and you'd get to see the characters fight. And I always liked having the close-up sort of fatality camera view. The only one I don't like is the complete top-down one, because I find the motion is kind of, it makes me feel a bit queasy. And when it does that sort of pivot, it's a bit uncomfortable. But the general, like the normal one you have and the fight one look good to me.
Yeah, the close-up with the fight, of course, gives you the opportunity for cool particles and other things.
Yeah. And when I say I like that it's close up, I just don't particularly like the camera setup that I have for it, because it's not doing a good job of really framing the character.
Are you using the Cinemachine auto frame stuff?
Yeah, it's using a framing transposer with a target group, I believe. Let me double check. So
yeah, like providing you've got a target group of your center two objects or whatever, it should literally frame it to the center.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it does. The problem that I have right now is that I haven't actually finished the part where it gets the target, so it only fills in the second one if they use a very specific spell. I think only the archer fills in his second one because he sets a target and everybody else doesn't set their target before then. So it's just a bug issue. But I think that like a view like that would be good. But I also want to keep it kind of coming, I guess, for that fight view. This is your guys' opinion, and maybe everybody in chat too. Should it be like the character fighting is always on the left or always on the right, or should it just vary? Like, should it always be like from the same perspective of the board, or should it be from the perspective of the character? That makes sense.
I would personally. So if it was me, I'd be going for. I would set a parent object with a dolly track. That's the shape of 3 or 4 tiles, and I would put a camera on that. And I would use the same transposer setup so that it keeps focus and center. But then I would go full Final Fantasy and have the camera do that like slow 360 around the fight as it's occurring. And so it's a more of a like showpiece. And if you wanted to, you could have 2 cameras, one that's like a lock and one that's the sort of cinematic one. And that way the player could choose between the cool fight view versus the practical, just see the fight, you know?
That sounds cool too.
I suppose.
I like that.
Sorry, if you keep the camera behind your player, then it might cognitively also help you remember who's who. I mean, I'm sure you're gonna have colors and other indications as to which ones are your characters and which ones are the bad guys. But if you have the same view every time, so you're always like behind your guys, then that could help just people understand what's going on, especially if you've got fight after fight after fight after fight.
Yeah. Well, I guess part of it. That might not be as much of an issue with what I'm thinking, depending on how it ends up. I was thinking that the characters would be somewhat unique and like team-based, so you'd be able to kind of tell by looking at them. But that may totally change, in which case that wouldn't make less sense. I may make it so that you just pick like anything and mix and match. And realistically, there's a good chance that I will, because just get a while and let people kind of mix and match random shit. You can see my
I was going to say too. Based on what Sporko was saying, with left or right side and how people align characters in games. So my assumption to that is it's less about good on the left and bad on the right kind of side of the screen. I think it's more about the fact that it's down to what country you're in and how you read. So we read left to right, and so its progression is left to right sided. And so when you're having a game and you've got a character who's progressing, it traditionally has you moving, progressing across the screen from left to right. Most games do that, where you have that sort of left to right sided progression. And so we've established more. I don't think it's that the left is the good side, it's that that's the protagonist side, because that's the story moving in this direction, you know, like playing forward versus playing backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think of it as like your character's on the left because you're player one. Like that's where player one's character always is. You're on the left and your enemy is on the right. So it's
colonialism.
Yeah. I think of it as Street Fighterism. Like, player one's on the left and player two is on the right, and that's that's what everything is based on going forward for all time.
Yeah, a lot of the if you think of a game like Hearthstone, you're always on the bottom. The bad guys, the other opponent's always on the top. And for a lot of games where it's the board is symmetrical, no matter whenever you play, you're always the blue and you're always on the left or on the bottom or wherever, and the other player is always on the opposite side, but from their point of view, they're blue, you're red, but in this game, especially for Tilt 5, you can't do that. So you have to worry about doing the math to on that.
Well, for card games especially, I would blame that on skeuomorphism. So skeuomorphism is the name for when something represents what it's like in real life. So that's when you have like anybody who's worked with audio equipment, where you use like virtual physical dials that you rotate, or the most famous example of all time being Dead Space for games, where you have like the health bar is physically on the character. It's part of the suit or whatever. So in that example, card games, you hold the cards right close to your chest and you're looking over your cards at the opponent. So the cards that should be forward to you should be yours. So I think that's more designed visually to represent your side of the table versus the opponent's side of the table.
Yeah. And here I do it more. It's like your side of the game board, right? Kind of the same thing. And there was a comment. Well, first there's a question: how do you enter the giveaway? You just do what it says in there. Choose a racing class. You'll enter right away. Rat is the weakest. It's the one in there that's the default. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to buff it. I looked at the stats earlier. It is by far the weakest, but because it's the default, a lot of people pick it. So if you heard that, then you should probably pick a different race. Out of all of them, the rat's the weakest. But there was a comment about the Tilt 5 thing and saying if your main goal is Tilt 5, I don't think you should rotate the camera too much. Zooming in and out is okay, but rotation would be weird. And I totally agree, except I'm gonna obviously just support more than just that one input mode. Because if I only supported that input mode, it'd be terrible for me to test and build and do anything. I'd have to only like get people who had one to play it and test it out. And while it's cool, it's not going to work as a first draft. I need to get the game playable for everybody and then make it work on there, which is easy enough. It's very simple to just swap out the input and camera. Because really, I don't with the Tilt 5. You just turn off that whole camera system, put on a different camera system, slightly different input system, done. Like there's not a whole lot to do. The camera system is all for flat screen versions only.
Jason, are you planning on adding post-processing and changes in the various views?
Do I?
Yeah.
I assume so. Yeah. I assume I'll load it up with nice visuals. But first, I want to figure out what I want it to actually look like. Because I mean, right now it's just in a pack that I had. I was just like, oh, this pack has D&D characters. That's what I was looking at. Because Joe from the conference had said he really wanted to play D&D on there. I was like, okay. Find some D&D looking characters that were I started with some of yours and then I was like, okay, these won't work on my laptop, so I needed super low poly ones instead of HD ones. But I was thinking once I get to get the game done and working and I don't need to do dev work, I want to switch to like some HD PBR stuff that actually looks super high def in there. But I'm not sure what theme I want to go with. Do I want to go like fantasy? Do I want to go sci-fi? Like, they're running around with blasters or both. I don't know. That's the hard part, like deciding on like what the actual theme should be. what the environment should look like and what the balance of the characters should be. I guess I could talk a little bit about that because that was one of the other things I wanted to talk about. So one of the reasons that I'm heavily leaning towards the fantasy part is because it's easier for me to balance. Like it's easy for me to know and understand like exactly what the balance parts are because I played enough fantasy D&D RPG stuff to kind of know like what does an AoE attack, what does that look like, how does that work, versus when you get into like sci-fi stuff, everybody's got a ranged weapon and like the limits kind of change, so it's like everybody's a magic user when you get into sci-fi themes. So I was trying to figure out like I don't know what types of things I should think about with balance and what ideas you guys have that would make it interesting for a game like that where you've got let me just switch back to it for a second. You got the tabletop controls, you're putting out your characters, moving them around ideally somewhat strategically, and I want to have a bunch of points of interest along the map so that you can kind of go after pieces of armor, potions, or other upgrades, or maybe things that give you new units or whatever they are. It could be things for like the next round. I still haven't really figured that out. So thoughts. What would be some fun mechanics to introduce, like varying characters with good balance, I guess? You guys got any thoughts on it? I mean, I don't have like super specific questions. I just kind of wanted to open it up.
I think if both teams have the same character set, then there's an inherent balance achieved right there just because they have the same opportunity. So if there is an exploit, they can both use it technically in many cases. But it's kind of interesting, like if you did have fantasy versus sci-fi. And so I guess the question would be, to your point of, hey, all these sci-fi characters now have ranged weapons. Maybe the range is limited, so that's not, it doesn't go all the way across the map like a real gun might. But also it makes you then think, well, how can I buff the fantasy, which you brought up magic? Maybe all fantasy, teams have a fair amount of magic. How can you buff that? Shields and other power-ups, transporting, and different things on how you can counteract that. And then honestly, in my head, I'm thinking now you need a Western group as well. And now you've got cowboys on horseback and stuff. And so I don't know. But I would just suppose you just have to, go StarCraft route in a way. And for any cool thing you can do with any one group of characters, find something on the other group that can counteract that. And as long as there's always something that can kind of counteract it, then players can try to figure out what to do in any given situation.
I'm always a fan of directly conflicting technologies with that same duo of yin and yang. For example, people who've watched Arcane, you've got hex tech on one side, right, and the other technology on the other. So it's in the same way. I'm a big fan of having sci-fi versus fantasy, where there's fireball and then there's cannon. Now they're both exactly the same in terms of conceptual damage, shot, and AoE and whatever, but they're directly proportional, so that you can put out or stop a cannon with magic wall, but you could then stop fireball with barricade. They're again same thing, but you're like, it gives you this fun narrative that they're competing technologies.
True, and they could have slightly different tweaks too, so that they act a little bit different.
Hey, you guys are inspiring me to try. I'm gonna try mixing and matching, putting in both. And I wish if your eye was here, he'd probably be like, you should just allow them to make their own characters and upload them and customize them and mod them. So maybe I'll look at that too, see if it's possible to. Because realistically, it'd be easy to allow with this kind of character. It's super simple. It's like assign some abilities, some stats. It can all be a simple scriptable object in a model with a animation override controller. Like I could realistically probably allow people to just pop in whatever character they wanted and customize it. And obviously, you figure out like rules for limits if you want to enforce them. But that could be an interesting. It would be a neat video idea too, like on how to build your own character, like a customizable character system.
It would
All
be
right,
interesting.
You guys have convinced me.
Yeah, if you mentioned about being able to pick up weapons and armor, if a wizard picks up a rifle, what happens? Does it turn into an ice rifle?
No, he just gets confused. He just looks at it and sells it. I can't use this, and sells it to the vendor.
This staff is weird.
Yeah, or maybe he'd toss it over to that could be cool. He'd just like throw it over to his friend that's a sci-fi guy. They can use it.
Now you have the good excuse to have an equivalent of like an armory. So in the same way you had the priests who could convert people in Age of Empires, imagine having the equivalent of an armorer who's like someone who understands weapons from the opposing side. And so you have to take the weapons and then move them to that character who can like convert them to magic weapons that could then the other team can use as upgrades or whatever. So you'd have somebody who could like take a magic wand, break it down, and turn it into bullets. Or you could have somebody that could take a gun and then like construct a wand out of it to give it to upgrade the wizards or whatever. Yeah.
Magic bullets that can bend, like in that one Angelina Jolie movie.
Don't all bullets magically bend like that?
If you make your gun go like this when you shoot, yeah,
it's like bowling, right? You gotta push it with your powers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, wizard gets negative aiming buff using firearms. Yeah, I think it'd be okay. You guys have got me inspired. So I need to do the multiplayer part first, then I'll add in sci-fi and customization. That seems good. Multiplayer, I expect to take. I expect to have that done tomorrow. I'm gonna start it today and then get it up and done like tomorrow. I've built the stuff so that everything is super separated out. All the players just send commands. They take commands and they just send them to the characters, and the game state controls it. So it should be pretty straightforward. Just a couple RPCs from a client. Gonna be mostly just setting up like local player camera controls to actually look right, so that they're not hard coded in a spot and stuff. So I think it's going to be pretty simple to get going, and then we can do sci-fi stuff. That'll be awesome. Yeah, this is sounding cooler and cooler.
Also, there's no shortage of sci-fi assets, right? Like as far as the asset store goes, I think you and I both already own about 30% of all sci-fi assets on the asset store.
Yeah, there's a ridiculous number of them that I've got, and they all look great. So I can do some really cool stuff. Amir was asking what multiplayer system you use. I'm gonna take a look at the netcode for game object stuff and their new matchmaking service. This game realistically it would run on something like simple and turn-based. Like it could use a web API because it's just select a unit, send a unit to this place. So it's like the message is like a couple bytes. I guess it's 1 byte for the character and then maybe up to 3 for the hex. I could probably shrink that down. So it's tiny data amounts. So I'm not worried about performance or anything like specific. I just want to try something that I haven't used yet. So I'm going to use the netcode for game objects one. So yeah, I think that's probably, I think there are a couple other ones I was looking at trying out too. But since Unity's is new and it's just coming out and I want to get some experience with it, I wanted to dive into that instead of looking at some of the other things that have been around for a while that I haven't played with. So that's the plan, at least. We'll see how it goes. I'll let you know probably tomorrow or the next day how it ends up.
Awesome. On a side note, this is a little philosophical from a game design perspective, but it's come up a couple of times in chat, so I think it's worth talking about. People are talking about negative traits. Now, there's a very important asterisk here from a game design theory perspective. You're not really talking about negative traits, because from the description, at least when it started, is the idea that there is such thing as picking up some positive trait which has consequences, right? Like you get extra damage in the sun, but then you lose strength at night, or you were twice as strong, but you require blood to live, or whatever perk or whatever you want. That's fine, because what that is a cost benefit, right? That's an analysis that the player has, and there's a fun build augmentations you can do. But universally, in almost every game ever, giving characters negative traits is a bad thing. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do it, but you have to be sneaky about giving positive traits. For example, if you gave your character a exhaustion negative debuff, it feels cheap. It's annoying as a player to be in a state of exhaustion you can't do anything about. And so psychologically, that's a frustrating thing. But if you switch it to a well-rested perk, where if you are within 3 hours of having been in a bed or something, you get a perk. It's exactly the same thing. It's just psychologically, it's a lot more comfortable for players. So try to avoid actively punishing players for not doing things and reward them for engaging. It's very subtle, but like huge difference in people's engagement.
Yeah, it's all psychological tricks there. Start with the pain and remove it. This is an example. This was one of those characters, by the way, with a negative trait. The demon, if you pick that, has negative 10 health. It's a little bit small. Let's make it bigger for a second. Let's go like that view. So it's got negative 10 health to start, but it has 2 attack damage and it heals 2 for every hit. So it's a small trade-off. It has some of the bigger bonuses, but one of the only downsides. So it actually, I think, is the biggest damage bonus on a race. And the heal to make up for it starting off with lower health. Let's see how it does. I have no idea if it'll win though. Or we got lots and lots of dragons. Everybody picks a dragon. It just has health. Dragon warrior. It's like the max health option.
Well, I only picked dragon because I wanted to pick bard, and there's something very funny about a little lute playing dragon in my head. So
that's fair. A dragon bard. And I really want to get abilities in here, but I kind of also I was thinking about it. I know I shouldn't, but I kind of want to make a version of the battler that works in here. So they can get their character and just type in the spot they want to move to. Maybe just make a different game where they can just type in chat and move their character, and it'll just fight whoever that round. So everybody can give it their destination, and then once everybody's once the turn's up, it'll just move on to the next turn. Everybody will move again.
That's
type in their spot.
What you're basically doing with all this, Jason, is creating an entirely new genre of games called the YouTube game, where people come into YouTube and you got 2 teams and they're automatically put into one team or the other, and they all basically type their vote for what their team characters are about to do, and the democracy wins here. So if 40% say flee and 60% say fight, then that character is going to fight, and you've got the most engaging YouTube videos ever.
Yeah. That would be a lot of spam, at least in the chat for sure. Yeah. It sounds fun though. I kind of want to try it out. And once you get all the other stuff working, make it into a multiplayer game first, and then add weird game modes and things as soon as you get a little bit of time.
Like an infinite runner where people just have to type really quickly left, 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 and if not enough people type left.
With the nice 10-second YouTube delay.
Yep.
I think it would be great. All right, let's get the battler back up so people can see themselves joining. And then I think I had a couple questions in here that was going to pop up. So let's see. What's the link for Twitch? I dropped that in the chat, but I'll drop it in again. If you haven't joined on the Twitch stream, please do. Just trying to get the views up there, get it to the affiliate level, and then start actually building up that Twitch page just a little bit, just so people who want to watch on Twitch can come join us there. And I'll get the integrations working in there too, so that people can enter the giveaways and all that. Then there was a question. Ooh, I've got 2 big questions. You guys want an easy one, or a hard one, or a really hard one?
That's 3 choices for 2 questions. Let's go with the easy and then the really hard.
Oh. Can you show your default writer setup? I just picked the C# defaults. I didn't change anything else. Whatever it was, Visual. I think I picked the Visual Studio defaults. I didn't literally left it on the default though. After that, didn't change anything. So that was the easy one. All right.
I changed a lot, but it's I can't explain. I can't because I change the font. I change the ligatures. I change the background color. I change the plugins I install. I set up my own code completions with the live templates. I set up shortcuts for the closing of regions, so my own custom shortcuts for certain actions I do a lot. Then I use there's a lot. I'd have to go through various things.
Yeah, I went with the default so that way I could reproduce it easily on any system that had writer. Make it simple for myself and just kind of try to learn them.
Well, my problem is having used Visual Studio for whatever it was for years. When I switched over to Writer, it's like this is really good, but it's like missing little things that over the years I've added to Visual Studio. So the very first thing I did is how can I bridge the gap by moving as much of my shortcuts and things over as I went.
That makes a lot of sense. I forced myself to go through new stuff and try to ditch all my old things. But I didn't have that many useful built up habits like you probably did. You probably had a lot more shortcuts than I did for sure. So here's the second question, the one that was the next hardest on there. What's the best way to manage 1,000 transforms that are used as waypoints in a scene? They don't contain any scripts or anything, but they want to know if having 1,000 plus in the hierarchy is bad. Do they need to pass them as transforms? So should they change that to something else, or is 1,000 transforms good? And what are some alternatives? I can think of some alternatives. I don't know necessarily that it's bad. It probably depends a bit on the case. If that's, you got 1,000 transforms total and you're probably fine. If it's that plus there's tons of others and you're pushing for performance, you might be able to squeak a little bit out by cutting down those waypoints. What are your guys' thoughts?
Wouldn't it depend how you're using it?
Yeah, I would say 1,000 is actually in computer terms, 1,000 is nothing. That's like a sneeze. Wouldn't even blink at that. That being said, 1,000 transforms are 1,000 bits of a lot of data. That is 1,000 individual units of a position, which is 3 floats.
And a game object and a whole
floats.
bunch of other stuff.
And all the other stuff and whatever. And at the end of the day, all you're actually storing from a position is a position. And so what you could do, and the cool thing is, right, here's from an automation standpoint, it's a whole separate conversation, but it's worth talking about. Just because you've picked one solution doesn't mean you're doomed forever. For example, if you'd given me a project and it has 1,000 transform waypoints, that's frustrating. I wouldn't want to do that. But what I would do is I would write an editor script that would find all of the waypoints, store them in a list for each one, create an array, and just take the position vector value, put that in an array, then store that in a scriptable object, and delete the original things. And then I would use a Gizmo tool, which would draw handles at each of the positions of the new vector 3 positions. Now, it's exactly the same thing from a data perspective, but I'm only storing 3 positions, and I have the arrows to move it around, and I'm saving a considerable amount of data. So, yes, I would say a lot of people think they have to get the right answer first. I would start with transforms. I even do this now. I will make a parent object. I'll put a bunch of child objects. I'll say for each child equals waypoints, and I'll make something called a waypoints manager or something, and I will say waypoint manager.get waypoint. And I will use that for a very long time. But at a certain point, I'll hit the stage where I'm like, okay, now we're at like 40 waypoints. Maybe we should like at least start moving in the right direction, at which case I would just write a script and do what I said. Just automate that, switch it over, and now move to a new workflow. So I don't solve problems I don't have, but I give myself the ability to solve it later,
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that's exactly kind of the pattern and workflow that I like to go through too. Just start with them as game objects, transforms and stuff, and then start moving it over once it becomes a problem. Once you realize like, hey, I'm gonna have a ridiculous number, put them like per path or something. So you might have like a path for the waypoints that the things are following, and then just have each path have this waypoints under them with and you were saying you just create like a handle at each one. You want to tell everybody really quickly how to do that, or what to look for that?
So there's a lot of powerful features in Unity that people don't use, and so one of them is Gizmos. If you just go into the undraw Gizmos, you can write Gizmos dot. You can draw a sphere, you can draw circles, you can draw lines, and you can basically plumb those out. But they're really simple. And one of the downsides to that, for example, if you draw a line, it's a pretty ugly, thin, heavily aliased line. There's a second editor-only set of tools called handles. And some of them you can do is things like the AA polyline, which is anti-aliased, full poly, nice, clean line. You can set a height and a width to it, so it's actually got a shape. It's like a tube, not just a single thin pixel line. Other things it includes are handles, and various other handles would be things like the drag handle. So when you click an object and you move it around, that's a drag handle. And what you can do is you can make your own. You basically can create a handle at a position, and then in the editor, in the scene view, you can drag it around and move it like any other object you would select. And so you can just make your own handles, set them to each one. You can use a on object selected, so effectively it doesn't stay there all the time, but you click your waypoint system, you create a button that says begin editing, and then you just add some waypoints. In fact, you've seen this already in the form of light probe groups and what what else has its own custom editor for dots of things? It's like loads of things too. Some custom edit mode for custom handles, but yeah, you get the idea.
Yeah, like kind of like the collider editors too. You get the same little thing when you
Yeah.
hit edit collider, and you modify and move the points around. And I can think there's another one. I'm trying to remember. I know what you're talking about. There's another one you edit them and you move them around. They've done it a bunch of times, and it's totally blanking on me. It's in the editor by default. Well, it'll come to us, I'm sure. So before we go on, I just wanted to say hello and introduce our other guest, who I don't know
What's
if
up?
everybody here has seen. You know, say hello and introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll
Hey,
share your
Jason.
YouTube channel as well.
Sure. Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, first of all. I'm Hassan. I work at Unity. I'm the community manager. You may have seen me on some of like the streams, creator spotlight streams, where we interview developers and stuff. And I met Jason at GDC, where we did like a bunch of streams together, which was amazing and super fun. And at GDC, he was like, you should jump on my show sometime, and I promised I would, and I'm very happy to be here. GDC was a while ago. I couldn't make it, but I'm here now. So thanks for having
I'm just
me.
glad you finally made it. You're able to get here.
Yeah.
And I've been watching your videos. I just dropped a link in the chat right now for everybody to go check it out. Go check out
Thank
the
you so
videos
much.
and subscribe. Has been talking about games and giving some really cool feedback. The magnet one was really neat. Just talking about
Appreciate it. Yeah, we started a new YouTube channel where it's basically turning let's playtest like playtesting, the playtesting format into video form, right? So because I've been participating in millions of playtests, I've hosted many game jams, and I've given so much feedback to so many different games, and I was like, I really enjoy doing it. I'm like, what if I could turn this into like a YouTube channel or something? And so essentially we play the game for the first part of the video, then we provide feedback for the second part, and then we just brainstorm fun ideas after that. And actually, as part of the feedback, we actually like make mock-ups so we don't just talk, we look at the thing and then we actually make mock-ups based off of what we're saying, right? So for the second game, we played Game Maker Toolkit's Untitled Magnet game and provided feedback for that. There's a whole bunch of silly editing as well in the Let's Play part. It gets a bit less silly in the feedback part, gets a bit more serious, and like, you know, I think game designers will enjoy that part a good deal. So if you
you've got a nice Shure microphone, so we know you're a professional YouTuber.
That's exactly it. You know how it is.
You have to have the editing. Yeah, exactly. You can't not have the fancy editing at that stage.
Exactly. So it's actually my brother and I. We're both game developers, and our friend is that little Star Fox character that pops in and out. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. The editing was really good too, and I liked just like from the start it pulled off it like kicked off with all these animations and like interesting hooks and stuff. I thought it was a really well done video personally. I was like, watching, I was like, this is a like for an early, because how many have you done? Like 2 or 3 videos so far?
This is the second one. Yeah, that's just the second episode.
For second video, the quality was just out of the water. It was I compare that to my second video, and like on my second video, I'm like, did I remember to fix my hair and put on a shirt? You know,
trust
we
we
didn't have any editing.
We overdid it, but we still like missed so many things. Like there are so many things where like, oh my god, will the audience notice this? We messed this up. But in the end of the day, you realize that they don't really notice a lot of those things going in, and we definitely overdid it for our first episode.
Yeah, it's almost like the audience who's watching your video hasn't spent the 5 hours of carefully scrubbing every frame that you have and seen every flaw.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna see the one thing that you missed. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's right.
The one part that you accidentally cut out.
The giant part that you missed because you were so focused on all the details.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Part where you put in the same thing twice in a row.
The very obvious thing. But thank you for the comment on the intro. That was like a bunch of pixel art that I did where I recreated the three of us, and thinking of doing a bit more of that, throwing more animations in and things like that. It was just a fun way to just like practice my pixel art and things like that. Yeah,
my pixel art's terrible, so yours blows me away. I didn't realize you'd done that all yourself too. Now I just feel jealous.
They're just like little 3-frame animations. They're actually so like, I was just like practicing this. It was a way of practicing how to get the most out of 3 frames, right?
Yeah.
So if you notice that like little run animation or the thing, it's just 3 frames looping over and over again, and it's just you can do so much with just 3 frames. The eye fills in all the blanks when it comes to pixel art, so it's actually not that much work.
Crazy stuff. We were just
Well, I
talking about
subscribe.
art a little while ago, trying to
thanks.
figure out an art direction. I was
What's
telling
that,
the
Jason?
guys I wasn't sure if I wanted to do sci-fi or fantasy art for this little battle game that I've been building, and they convinced me that I should just do both.
Oh, you can do fantasy sci-fi? Let's go. Final Fantasy kind of does that.
The current.
That's my standard way of doing it. If I can't decide which I want, you just say both. Just do both.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, Final Fantasy kind of does that, doesn't it? Where they do this like fantasy theme, but also sci-fi. They have these airships and their laser guns, but also swords and axes. And
plus, we all remember the best movie of I think the 2000s, Cowboys versus Aliens.
Of course,
and
yes.
so
that's right.
You know,
that's right.
I admit, we were
Still the
talking
best
earlier.
movie.
You mentioned Cowboys. I literally did picture that movie and said nobody's heard of this. I'm not even going to mention it. It's not even going to be a reference anybody will get.
Nobody's gonna know about the best movie of the 2000s, Jason.
I mean, it's the best movie of the 2000s.
It was pretty legit too.
Oh. Well, yeah, I'm definitely gonna implement them in though. I'm gonna grab. I've got the which pack is that? The sci-fi pack. Let me see. I have the crazy pack that I have to delete from my laptop all the time because it takes up 4 gigs. It's like this giant sci-fi character pack, and I'm gonna put those guys in there as soon as I figure out which one it is, and then clear up some more space on my laptop because that thing is huge.
Sounds like you might need a new laptop.
I might. The problem that I have with laptops, so I've in the past I've bought like super high powered.
But they don't have enough RGB. It's the problem.
It's not even that, because RGBs in bed aren't allowed. Right? I got a wife, and she won't allow that. And the baby will wake up and stuff.
So there is
I don't want baby. But the problem is that with the high powered ones, my lap catches fire. It's so damn hot that it's terrible. So what I use now is this Lenovo Yoga one. It's like a touch screen, flips open, it's super light, it's like an i5, so it's not super hot, and it doesn't have a built-in like high-end GPU. I think it has like some Intel one or some low-end AMD one, so it works good as like a low spec device that doesn't get too hot on my lap. I'd like to have something badass and fast, but the problem is like it's super fast, and like 10 minutes later my lap hurts because it's so hot. Like I just can't.
You should get a lap desk.
But I can't use that really in bed.
You can. There's
I mostly use my laptop when I'm laying down in bed, like with the wife there, and I'm like trying not to wake her up. She's sitting there with a baby.
Okay.
You're actually using a laptop as a laptop, whereas
literally
many people just never ever do that.
Yeah, I only use it on my lap. I never, if I'm gonna use like a desk, like I just come down here and the screen.
See, what you want to do is get one of those microphone arms that you've got, stick one of the big laptop on it, and put it over the bed.
Oh,
so you
wow.
can just pull it down, and there you go. You know.
Yeah, I got a wife that I want to keep. She's picky about that stuff. I'm pretty sure she would kick my ass if I had a laptop hanging in the bedroom. It's one of the few areas that I'm not allowed to decorate. Well, actually, most areas I'm not allowed to decorate. This is the one where I decorate. That's why
it explains the overdoing it in the background. Yeah. I will say I have the opposite problem, which is instead of going for the superpower laptop, I was trying to be too smart for my own good, and I went for the Acer Swift 7, which is this like it's the thinnest laptop made. It's this really paper thin thing, and it's gorgeous. It's like a piece of work of art, but it's so slow compared to my like 2080 Ti beast of a machine I work at that I hate it. Like I really love looking at it, but every time I sit to use it, I'm like, I refuse. I'd rather just use my phone. There's more power in my phone than the stupid laptop. So, yeah.
I feel you there. You got to have some power, but it gets difficult. But then again, I try to just do like lightweight stuff on my laptop for the most part. But it was a downside because I couldn't use Andrew's models because of my laptop video card.
Yeah. See, I recently switched from my Macs, from my iMac to a MacBook Pro, specifically because I was tired of not being able to go to the coffee shop and keep working on my game. And I wanted, and so I was going back and forth. I had this laptop from my day job, and now I don't use it at all. It just sits here because I've got a better laptop that I use for everything, and I can take that with me. So I can just close it, go to the coffee shop, do my day job stuff, switch over to my game dev stuff without leaving the coffee shop. And then
That's
I can come
amazing.
home and then just keep working on it. It's just so much more convenient being able to do it all at once.
I just made the compromise. When I'm working on stuff that's like outside of the office, it's all paper, you know, it's all
Nice.
written notes and stuff. And I find that
I like
it
that.
forces me to detach, you know, and it lets me write. And I still have like, I'm talking like, I have notes about making fields and naming labels. And I was doing stuff. It's still programming stuff. It's just doing it in a way where I'm like logging it and writing it down. And that way I can still work, but I don't have to worry about laptop stuff, you know.
I think that disconnect is good, you know, like changing your environment every now and then as well, like going to a coffee shop, having an excuse to go to a coffee shop. A notebook is a good one for that. Like I'm just gonna take my notebook and my pen, sit in the coffee shop, write down my ideas or whatever. I would love to be able to do some of my work at a coffee shop, but a lot of it is like art and like color based, and my laptop has a horrible like screen, and so all the colors are completely inaccurate. So I have
you
this
seen
monitor.
all those external screens for laptops? You can be there with like 3 screens at the coffee shop.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
but they're even worse. The color accuracy and they all tend to
roll
have
in
this
your
muddy
desk.
color.
that's so overkill.
There's even one company which has it at the back of your monitor. I've seen one where you can literally pull out 2 screens and flip them, so it's actually built in as like a snap
That's
thing.
crazy.
I
I've
use
seen
this
that
at the
one.
coffee shop. I put my
What is
laptop
this?
on this. It's a laptop stand.
Uh-huh.
It just collapses, really small. So I put it
Oh
in my
my
bag,
God.
and I've got my keyboard. That I
You think you
use.
were going camping if you didn't know like what looks like
Oh,
a
Do
magic
you have to
camping.
reserve a seat at the
It's like the
coffee shop or
complete
something?
opposite.
Like-
It's great because I'm at the coffee shop, so my drink is off to the side. The desk is clear. My neck, I'm looking straight at the
Amazing.
ergonomic height for the screen.
Did you bring your Herman Miller chair to the coffee
I
shop
wish.
as well?
I wish that would be great. But Herman Miller needs to make like just pads you can put on other chairs. But
Yeah.
a long
They just
time
need a
ago when I
pop-up
was
chair.
at the shops every day with my laptop, I would always be looking down. My neck would start just hurting and then when I got that, it stopped because suddenly my ergonomics.
You know, the coffee can be delivered to you, right? Like that's a bit
It's
easier
not
than
the
bringing the
same.
entire computer setup.
It's
It's
not
true.
the same. And now that it's summertime, I like every day I'm outside for like 4 or 5 hours every day
Nice.
doing my work. So it's good for the mental health too. But yeah.
That's true.
That
I
little
try to do
laptop stand.
transcriptions. I
What?
have the little app to record on my phone, and what I used to try to do is there's a field like 5 minutes away, and people walk their dogs there. And so if I go at the right time where nobody's there, I can just sort of do laps, do my walk, and then like talk ideas into it. And now there's all this really cool transcription software, so you can just plug it in and turn it into written notes immediately, which is
No
really
way.
nice.
Is there one you recommend?
Honestly, I literally just Google transcribe audio to
Okay.
video, and there's a website you can just drop stuff in; it'll automatically do it for you.
That's great.
There's so many these days. There's also literally Descript is the one I'm currently using, but there's so many. Like literally, there's tons of free ones. The only problem I have is, of course, you're like super self-conscious. I'm still not somebody okay with doing the whole YouTuber talk in public thing. So if I'm walking around a field talking to myself and I see so much as one person 2 kilometers away, I'm like, no, putting that away. I'm not going to keep talking to myself now.
You ever pretend like you're talking to somebody on a video call? just make them yeah. That would definitely be weird. I can't imagine just walking around talking to myself on it feels weird doing it at home whenever anybody's here, or I accidentally leave the window open. I'm like, I think the neighbors might be out there. Like, oh, this feels weird.
Oh,
But-
home is fine. I used to have people staring in at me when I'm singing in my office by myself, but you're staring at me now. This is my house. It's different if I'm outside. I should respect other people's rules outside.
But I've done that, Jason, where I'll just like talk voice notes into my phone at night, so there's no one watching me. But I feel like I never listen to them back. But just the act of like speaking into the phone like helps me work through my ideas. Like it's like the rubber ducky thing, essentially, while walking, and just I don't know. It does really help. I've like solved big problems doing that in the past.
Yeah. My problem is I can do that for a little bit. I can talk or write down notes for a little bit, but after a little bit, suddenly I want to implement them right away. And so I don't want to wait 3 hours until I'm back. I just want to do it. So that's where I'm
But that anticipation makes you want it even more,
No, I don't know.
No, you're like, no, I need immediately. I don't know.
Yeah, I got to work on stuff right away. I feel like I need to just jump on it when I get ideas. Like in the middle of the night, I have the hardest time. I could try to do what Jason does and
Yeah.
write things down, and I have a notebook there, and I write it down, and then I'll look over like, is my wife gonna wake up if I get out of bed and just go code this? And if the answer is probably, then I'll try to sneak out. If it's definitely yes, then I won't. But if there's a chance I can get out, I like sneak out. Like I gotta just go code it.
What's your sleep like, Jason? Just waking up in the middle of every night.
It's I don't come up with good ideas that often. It's maybe like
I'm not gonna
once a
lie.
week
I doubt it. I bet you do.
I've learned never to go to bed on half an idea, because if I'm like half thinking of something as I go to sleep, so many times you're lying in bed, tossing, turning, you're like slightly, I've got an idea. Every time I do that, I within 30 minutes, I'm like, well, I'm getting up, turn the computer back on. I have to just take this out of my brain. So I will always make sure that if I have half an idea, I allow myself to at least finish whatever it is here before I go upstairs. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep.
Yeah. That's a good.
I'm the opposite. I like going to sleep with a problem in my head because I wake up sometimes and then sit down and I'm like, oh, I know the solution now. Just, I don't know. Sometimes I'll take a nap with a problem, thinking about a problem, and take a nap, and an hour later wake up and be like, oh, I figured it out.
But that's a legit strategy.
Gotta let the brain do its thing.
Yeah.
Don't get in the way.
I do the same thing, but with water, rather than waiting for sleep. So I always have water somewhere here, and to the point where it's not just generally good to hydrate. Cheers. But the other side of it is that if you drink a lot and you need to go to the bathroom a lot, through forcing yourself, you will have to leave and get up for regular intervals. And anybody who does complicated problems knows it's very easy to get lock-in syndrome, where you're so focused on something, you miss an obvious answer because you're so focused. So getting up, walking around, if I find myself going to the bathroom, I'll usually like take a small like lap around the house. It's not very big, but just enough that like you'll stretch, you'll sort of like separate a bit every 30 minutes or whatever. And then by the time you sit down, fresh eyes, it has the same effect.
That's true. Al Santura in the chat said, I do some of my best thinking and solving stuff while sleeping. And like, I'm not sure if you're saying that as a joke, but it's like actually true. Like I was reading this book called The Inner Studio by one of my professors from back in university. And it was like, they talk about how as you're falling asleep, you get closer to your ego goes into the background and your subconscious comes to the foreground, and like that moment as you're about to fall asleep, you're extremely creative and your mind is really opened up to all kinds of solutions. So I find as I'm falling asleep, I'm thinking like my brain is running and I'm like solving problems, and as I'm waking up, those two moments are like golden for me. Like I recommend it. Tap into that subconscious.
For me, it's right when I wake up and right before I go to bed where all my good ideas come to. So that's pretty much it. Or in the middle of the day when I'm totally distracted with something else and not thinking about it. Yeah. Or in the bathroom, apparently.
Yeah, that's everyone in chat is saying.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the reason I go on walks is I get some good ideas when I go on walks. Sometimes I like audiobooks, but oftentimes I'll be on my walk and I'll like, gotta turn this off because my brain's thinking about something. And then like it happened this last week. I was on a walk and it was like a serendipitous moment where all of a sudden like my whole head went, because this idea popped in my head and I thought, wait, it's an obvious good idea. And I started thinking about it. I was like, oh yeah, I need to do this. And I got home and quickly forgot about it for a few hours. And then right before going to bed, I remembered I was like, oh, I gotta go do that. And then I did it and it worked. It was amazing. And now it was probably something that I should have thought of months and months or a year ago. And I just, for some reason, didn't even think of it, but I did while on a walk randomly. So.
Yeah, it's getting your brain clear. I like the comment in here about in the shower is it resonates with me a lot because that's where I like every morning I try to hop in the shower right away, like first thing. And then I'll start thinking, and occasionally I'll get an idea that gets me so excited I'll forget to like rinse the shampoo and conditioner out of my hair. I get out and I'm like, oh, like coming downstairs to start coding it right away. Like, oh, I didn't actually finish my shower.
Yeah, I was saying that I've got this pattern and a strategy now which works for me, which is wake up early and I have my shower and my breakfast. And as I'm sitting there, I record a daily vlog, like a morning, just 4-minute video of me just saying, here's some, here's what my plan is for today. Here's what I'm working on, how I feel about stuff. And that does two things. One, you don't want to record a vlog when you're like still looking exhausted in a dressing gown. So you at least get as far as getting ready. Yeah. Then once you're sitting there and ready, I'll always end it with going for my walk now. So it's recorded. I can't back out at this stage. So then I go for my walk, and then as I'm going for the walk, I've just talked about my ideas and I've gone for a walk. Now I'm still thinking about it and I'm frustrated because I want to get back to work on it. And so I'm going to walk faster so that I can walk back to get back to work done. So I do more exercise than I would have done had I not. And then as a final tip on top of that, I listen to an audiobook, usually about, like last time it was on Stoicism. This time it's on lean project startups. It's some kind of businessy or stuff podcast that I'm only allowed to listen to on the walks. So there's a like benefit to doing the walk for listening to it. And then by the time I'm done, I've now more oxygen to the brain and the energy, full of ideas. And that few minutes straight after you get back is like ready to go, you know?
What a game dev you are, optimizing every bit of your life. I actually love that.
Biology.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. As I said, it's about fooling your brain because I am full of bad behaviors. If I don't do this, I will sleep all day, I will do nothing, and I will enjoy it. So I do need to, I'm at war with my brain on a regular basis.
Nice. Oh, I just realized we got a new member on the channel, Big Rook Games. Thanks for joining. It doesn't pop up in Restream. I wish it did. It only pops up in the YouTube window. Oh,
yes.
Well,
So
thanks for joining. Welcome.
What? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was saying, what pops up in Restream versus what pops up in the chat? What should I be looking at?
So in Restream, you can see chat from Twitch and YouTube, but you can't see the icons and you can't see membership joins. I think that's about it. You can see pretty much everything except for that. And then I really want to talk to the Restream team sometime because there are a couple like little things that would be really nice for everybody to see.
And
like I don't think you guys can see
YouTube,
pinned, right?
We also can't see the Twitch. We can only see the chat from YouTube. We can't see the chat from Twitch. That's the other side of it.
We can see the
You
chat.
can see the Twitch chat. I can at least. Yeah.
Is it included in the sidebar?
Yeah, it's just nobody's talking right now.
I'm not seeing any YouTube.
Oh, there we go.
Actually.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I didn't think you could. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll show up in there, but there's just not a lot of Twitch chat. By the way, if you haven't joined the Twitch chat, please just jump over there. Go leave it up. You can mute it if you want. I just want to get it up to the point where people are there and start actually building up the page. So I'll probably put the page together sometime in the next week or two so that people can kind of join and watch there and kind of grow the audience in a second place too for people that are interested. But the giveaway is still only on YouTube.
My one biggest frustration missing feature is that I have to keep a second window open so I can comment and type into the YouTube chat. It would be nice if I could actually like write comments without needing an entire second chat open. That one does bother me.
Yeah, that's weird. It doesn't give you the option to pick a name and type in there.
No,
see, those are the kinds of things that there are a lot of like co-hosty things that would be really nice that I think that they should add. That and the ability to more freeform move things around because the layouts, there's only 6 of them and they're really limited. Being able to like get a good view of the giveaway and other things and have windows and differently would be nice. But there are a couple little things. Overall, it's neat tech though. Makes it so easy to do this. Like you click the link, you join, and you're in. Like there's nothing else to it. Like
exactly,
it's the easiest setup ever.
No time. Yeah, I've used Restream once before. I was joining some kind of like it was this board game show where we were all like talking about our board games.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, we were jumping in one after the other. I see Andrew plays a lot of board games. The big wall of board games.
you might think I play a lot. I don't play a lot. Unfortunately,
you collect.
I collect. Well, the problem is you need other people to play with, and
that's
you know,
true, yeah.
So I need my friends to invite me over, and it's just been a while since I played a board game. It's very, very sad. I'm disappointed about it.
Next time I'm in San Francisco for GDC, let's get together and play some board games.
Okay,
let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely play Resistance. That's my favorite. Like I said many times, any game which lets me be, duplicitous, I'm a fan of.
You like those ones, huh? Some people hate those games. They all seem very similar. They all feel very similar in many ways. Those ones.
The one problem I have is once you've played one round with me, you're immediately assuming I'm a villain every time. So now my job is going to be for the entire rest of the play session to like, no, trust me, I'm not this time. I'm actually a good guy.
Yeah, I have the same problem, by the way, Andrew, with board games. Just getting people to play, getting people to actually play it with me. Like, it's difficult. Sometimes I can get them to play like once, and then that's it, or I can get one person to play. But getting up to a critical mass is always very difficult for me. That's
Yep.
why I like video games and digital. That's why I need to make a digital board game, and why I want that Tilt 5 table. Then I can play the games and do it remotely. Maybe it'll work. Maybe that'll help.
Wait, did you say you want to make a digital board game?
Yeah, have you seen it yet? I was showing it a little bit earlier. Let me pop it up and show. So this is the one that I've been playing with. I started it it was 2 weeks ago, and now let's put it back onto human mode. And right now it's got a couple. There's 2 teams set up. You can do unlimited number of teams, and you select your characters, move them around, and then go into battle. So go like select. I want this dude. Let's see. I'll put. Did I break it? Oh yeah, there we go. So select that guy, and I'll put the healer guy there, or let's take the spider.
That's awesome.
And then it goes into a movement selection mode, and then the bots will do their movement selection, and then I get into the fight. They'll go into like a whole combat round. And my thought was initially, I kind of got inspired by that Tilt 5 table, the AR table that you can do this thing on. It's like, oh, make something you could see the little characters on. But then I was like, I got to make it actually work, make it multiplayer and all that. So right now I'm 100% focused on that. And then I'm going to convert it over to make it work on that table as well.
Oh, that's incredible.
And the next step is just getting networking. And so I was telling the guys I'm going to add in netcode for game objects either today or tomorrow, and go through getting up the whole Unity multiplayer stack so that I can get a little bit more experience with that, with the latest stuff that's about to come out.
Okay, nice.
And then see where that goes. I'm going to try out all the beta things and see how they work.
How long you been working on this?
Started 2 weeks ago.
Okay. He moves fast. It's looking really interesting. You've got the whole UI down. It was my
time off project. I decided I was going to take a week off and not work. So I did not work by making a game.
Nice. That's of course.
So then my wife was like, well, what are you doing with that? I was like, well, I'll probably turn it into a bunch of work things like YouTube videos, make a game out of it, do some other stuff. But it wasn't work to start. It didn't count as work. It was just fun. Playing around, hobbying, and then
hobby aspect of game dev.
Like any good game developer, take the thing that I was doing for fun and then make it a job.
Right, I relate. The YouTube channel is already turning into a job. The Let's Play test. It's like, this is going to be a way to hang out with my brother and play some games. Nope.
No, now you've got things. For you.
It still is. It is.
Lesson I've learned is never end the video with "next time we will" if you haven't already made that next thing.
Oh yeah,
you will be crucified if you dare to change your mind on what content you're going to make next.
I learned that on the first video, Jason. I learned that. Never again.
No, you got to say, if you want me to do this next time, leave a comment.
Good. That's good. I like that.
Got to build up that engagement. Speaking of, if you want us to do this again, say hi in chat and hit thumbs up. And also, if you want to win a JetBrains writer license, make sure that you enter the giveaway like Joe just did.
And how did they enter the giveaway?
Here's the fights. Oh, to enter the giveaway? I'll show that in just a second. So this is the fight. You see, like, it goes through turn by turn on each person doing the battle phase next. So it's kind of screwed up the scale here. Let me.
That's awesome. So the camera jumps from one to the other.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to highlight the character that's attacking and the thing that they're attacking, but right now it just highlights the character that's attacking because it's all kinds of bugged out. Cool. And I've broken
using Cinemachine?
Couple different things. Yes.
For the cameras? Nice.
It's using a target group, but it's only setting the caster as both targets accidentally instead of setting the second target.
I think this is actually super cool because like if you're looking at something like Fire Emblem, the screen will cut and then you'll see the two people fighting, and then it'll cut back to this other, like it's two completely different, like one is 2D top down, and then one becomes like, Street Fighter view, like side by side, and they're fighting each other. But in this, it's the same view, the same camera, right? So you can get very cinematic with this. The camera can swoop down onto the battlefield, look at the next battlefield, look at the next battle, and then the next one. You can have a lot of fun directing these fights, actually.
Yeah, and I want to do like AoE attacks. So like the archer, I didn't pick him, but he does an AoE attack that hits the whatever it is 7 tiles. So it does like a 1 radius around. And the spider, if it works, let me see. Let's switch view real quick. You can see he has a root ability, which is a spider web. I don't know if it'll let me select it, or if I've totally broken it, but it puts a web on a spot that makes it so that that spot can't be used anymore, and any unit that's in there can't move for 3 turns. So I wanted to do different kinds of cool effects like that. The effect for it is terrible though. Oh, it didn't work. Yeah, it's broken.
And right now you have water tiles, grass tiles, and then what's the brown is like mountain tiles or something, or
yeah, they're just, it was a tile pack that I grabbed off the asset store, and I just kind
Nice.
of picked some randomly. The water ones are impassable right now. And then the other ones are all kind of the same, just randomly rotated to give it some variety. But I want to do I don't really know what I want for the theme. Since we're talking about doing sci-fi and fantasy kind of mixed, like the theme could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be this basic fantasy setup. So I think what I'll do is get it all like functional real quick, and then go through maybe a couple different themes, maybe find a couple artists to build a couple tile sets, and then pick the one that I like the most.
Okay. Cool.
Something like that. But if you have thoughts or ideas on it though, like game design is the part that I struggle with. Making the code and making it all functional and stuff, that's like the easy challenges. Making it fun is much more hard.
Well, I have one request: is the circle thing doesn't look centered, or if it is centered, the shadow is causing it to appear off-centered, and that's driving me insane. So
on the characters.
What are you talking about?
The blue circle on the tiles. You've got these hexagons, and they don't look like they're centered in the middle. Or if they are, the shadow cast by it is making it look like they're not centered, which is driving me.
It's because they're like floating
it's
above.
2 different indicators, and one of them is like a meter above right now. That's the PathFinding indicator that's supposed to show up a hover path when you put your mouse over it, but it's not working right now, and it's just bugging out. That's what that is.
It's more of an
those indicators are also just a random icon that I slapped on there on a canvas. Like I'd like to have something that like really like something with the tiles, maybe so that the tiles can highlight themselves and like have an indicator that they're selected or something, instead of an ugly UI element on top.
This reminds me a lot of like when I was we were talking about game design. When I was first building my board game, I started with a really large map. Right, like the map was super big, and when I did the first few playtests, like it took so long for the characters to actually meet, like the opponents to actually meet and have a fun interaction before they would separate again. So I found that's going much smaller, starting there with a smaller map, so that I could test the interaction more quickly and be more specific about the level design. Really helped. So starting small. So I would say maybe if you were to like make the map a bit smaller, and then you can really test the effect of having like a path of water and then some mountains, and then you're really utilizing all the specific components that you have and testing them early. I would because right now the map seems quite big for the number of characters that are on the board, but of course that depends on I know it's still super early and it's just a test.
It's definitely big. That was just I think the normal size I was playing with was around this, and then I grew it out to try to see what it would like for like a 4-player setup, or if it made it more fun or interesting with some discovery. But I have no fog of war and no points of interest, so it doesn't actually help having it big like that. So yeah, this is closer to the size I was thinking of on a one-on-one though.
Yeah, that makes sense. 4-player sounds awesome though, because I haven't seen that in these kinds of games. It's always one-on-one. To work 4 players into this would be super cool. Like even if it was 2v2 or something.
I figured there was no real reason to limit like the number of players on it. As long as I can handle the performance, like it could be 100 players if you want. I don't know that it would be fun at 100 players, but technically, like I want to at least like allow some crazy number of them and see if it's fun or not. And not just like hard code it, because the amount of data, like we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the amount of data that you have to send for a turn-based little game like this is super tiny. It's not like an FPS where you've got to be fast-tracked moving and dealing with constant inputs at high speed. Like you're sending every minute or so, each person is sending over a couple bytes of data about the move that they'd like to make.
Yeah. And I think the rest
is just a little bit of stuff coming from the server.
At 4 players, you would have like such an interesting social dynamic as well, where it's like, people just trying to convince each other to ally, or like, hey, please make sure like kill this guy, he's about to kill me, and you're just it'd be a bunch of commotion over the board.
That's what I was thinking. Like a 4 or like somewhere between like 4 and 16 players, I think would be a lot of fun, depending on the map size. And then with points of interest and targets to go after, like armor upgrades that make a big difference, that make your character better. Like you go get this thing, so everybody's like racing to go get the sword or racing to go get this piece of armor, and whoever gets it now has a stronger character, become a bigger target, and then people go after that guy.
I love that.
Yeah, they do some things like that, or like things that you could pick up to then make you visible on the whole map to everybody if it's bigger scale.
Something that like shakes up the battlefield.
And Jason's
Or also some power up type thing. So real quick, get matchmaking set up, and then just start experimenting. Probably do some live streams. Just invite everybody to play and join. Go ahead, Jason.
One of my favorite examples of that is in a game called Savage 2. There used to be a mechanic where there was points of interest, and again, like a lot of games do this now. But if you captured the regions, it would spawn a thing in the center of the map, and if you got to this thing in the center of the map, you could summon a giant god monster thing that would fight for your side. And so the idea that everyone's fighting over, like, it's not a winning strategy because you'd have to hold all the points, so people don't do it very often. But if you catch someone off guard and they're not paying attention and they don't realize you've already caught 3 of the other ones, suddenly the god character appears, which is really cool. Yeah, that was a great game. The other thing about that game that was really cool is it had dual styles of play, where the commander was playing an RTS and everyone else was playing a first person or third person World of Warcraft style game. And so you ended up like giving commands to your team and buffing them and stuff in as the commander. It's very fun.
It reminds me of this show I used to watch when I was a kid called Beast Wars, where every now and then this pod would be shot out the sky. It was a Transformer show, right? So a pod would shoot out the sky, hit the ground, and whichever team, the Autobots or the Decepticons, whichever one would get to that first, could have that unit join their side, right? So you could even have units drop in from the sky, and whoever collects it first, you get to figure out, first of all, you don't know what it is. You open the case, and then, was it worth it? Was all my struggle getting to this thing worth it? It could be like this extremely powerful being or something super useless, like a weak skeleton or something like that. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, we lost Jason. I think I blew him away.
It was such a good idea.
It was such a
go do it now.
He's like, gotta work on it.
Sorry, guys, I gotta go code that up. The funny thing is, I actually have a system in there right now that gives you units. It just gives you whatever unit you can afford. There's a build system, so it auto builds, and you can pick up a treasure and it'll give you a unit. But all I really got to do to change that is make it so that instead of doing that, you get a unit randomly. Just instead of hey, my internet is dying today. Am I freezing up for you guys?
Yeah, you started a little bit. Yeah,
it started just a bit.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of enjoy not being the Jason with internet problems today.
Oh, one of us has to have them at all times. I gotta upgrade my internet again and get a backup one because this is it's getting worse and worse. They have a 2 gig option available, so now the 1 gig option is getting me like 80 megs up.
So, he's back.
Yeah, it's just freezing and freezing and freezing. So I'm going to pop up one of the questions that came up earlier that we didn't get to and see if anybody wants to answer this while my internet restarts. And it said, do you stumble upon long reloads of assemblies or repaints, etc., using Unity URP? And they're saying that dividing the project into smaller assemblies doesn't help, and there are a lot of threads, but no issues. And this, it says for URP, but personally for me, I've noticed that like with the latest version of Unity, at least, it seems like it's gotten a bit slow on a lot of things with URP. I guess with URP and HDRP projects specifically, but in general, it feels like they've gotten a little bit slower on new stuff, new projects and reloading. And like creating a new URP project it's not, it used to be almost instant. So do you guys know of any ways I know Jason has some tips for stuff I know with the package manager, things that he does to speed up a lot of this. But do you guys have some other tips or thoughts on this, making it easier? Or Jason, you want to share yours?
Well, I will say, unfortunately, this is kind of... The truth is, compared to the standard pipeline, URP is doing more stuff, which means it has to load more stuff. So there's already the inherent cost, which is just the nature of it doing more. The classic example of this is if you start an empty Unity project, bring up the frame debugger and just step through it. It's not doing that many steps. You take an empty project in URP and step through it, there's like 5 times as many steps being done in just drawing the empty scene. So the truth is, things like reloading assemblies, like the more things that are in your project, the longer that's going to take. There's no ifs or buts around that. The trick is avoiding things that will compile together. It's the problem with URP is if you change URP settings, you're changing all URP settings. And so you're going to be resetting a lot of that stuff. In general, that's why the reloading of assemblies isn't about making URP load faster, really. It's about isolating the code you change, so the code you change doesn't have to reload anything URP related, you know? And that comes down to drawing good boundary lines. So if you draw application boundary lines so your code can be written in isolation and reload one DLL, you don't have to write and reload the other things. It's not easy. My solution, like I've said before, is to go one step further, and 70% of my code I will write in Visual Studio or Writer without Unity open. I will just write code and test code and generate it. And then when I'm done, I drop a DLL into Unity and I don't do the compilation stuff. So all of those cycles of testing, I don't need to keep rebuilding projects and assets and materials and all that stuff, because that's not relevant to testing if a health value goes up or down, or if object is added to inventory. These are all numbers. If list size gets bigger, add it to inventory. Sure, there might be an animation and some visual portion. That's irrelevant to the testing if the code works. So that's more of an architectural question. If you're talking about like hard and fast things to help you with the compilations, honestly, remove things you don't need. That's literally the best advice I can give, which is go through your package manager. And I would actually cheat. I actually open the package file, because package manager only shows you some of the stuff. I literally open up the package, the JSON file, the manifest, and I'll just go through it and go, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. And the less DLLs, less rebuilding. That's just the best you can do.
All right, hopefully my internet doesn't freeze out. But yeah, I think that's generally good advice. Minimizing the stuff that's in the packages, but then also just having it in, having the project in a assembly definition. If the thing that you're changing is inside assembly definition, it doesn't end up recompiling. Also, make sure that you're using a fast solid state drive if you're doing game dev stuff. I wouldn't generally recommend anybody do game dev stuff without an SSD if it's an option. If you don't have an SSD as an option, do it without. But if you can get one, like, it's the first upgrade I recommend for everybody. It doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be the fastest, but it's going to blow away everything that's an actual physical hard drive for performance, and like opening, loading, and restarting your projects, which is like you forget what you were doing. Like, oh, that's you want to get rid of
And
that. Get rid of those pauses.
If Uri was here, he'd definitely mention the also check out the domain reloading stuff. So specifically, depending on the kind of work you're doing, you don't want it to reload everything when you press play and flush it. That can cause issues with cached data, so you can get some weird behaviors. But in general, if you're doing lots of fast testing, you don't want to have to press the button and wait those extra few seconds every single time. So I would go in and have a look at what options are suit your project for making that faster.
Sorry, my internet is totally dead. I'm going to kick off the giveaway in just a few minutes. So for everybody who wants to enter to win a copy of Writer, it's a 1-year Writer license. It's definitely worth winning and worth getting. All you have to do is type in the race and class that you want. You can see other people typing it in chat, or just look at the top of that little window there and pick. So there was a question Hassan wanted to pop up. Let me see if I can find that one. I think I made it, but I'll just read it. And if my internet doesn't go out, we can talk about it and answer it. It says, can you talk about the topic of including mechanics that are intentionally frustrating or tedious, and how to determine the threshold of how much to include? And we were talking a little bit about like characters or like weaknesses on characters. And this is kind of, I think, along that same vein of how you add in things to slow down or frustrate the character. So what were you guys' thoughts on this? Hassan, you want to start with it?
Sure, yeah. The first thing it made me think about was, I don't know if anybody here seen those like Double Fine documentaries when they were first making Broken Age, the first game to go big on Kickstarter. In that game, Broken Age, there's like this whole loop in the beginning of the game where the character's stuck on a spaceship. It's this point-and-click adventure game. and you're looping over and over again, trying to figure out how to get out of this loop, which is the character's like daily ritual cycle. He's going through the same thing every single day, and you're supposed to find the exit point to start your adventure, essentially. But you're literally playing through that loop over and over again. And Tim Schafer was like, I don't know, like, this is intentionally frustrating, but I don't know if I'm going too far here, because I'm supposed to represent that the character is frustrated, but I think I'm literally frustrating the players. And it's a difficult balance, because if you're somebody who's, quite quick to pick up on puzzles and you're able to get out of that loop quickly, it's enjoyable and you can tell that the character is getting frustrated. But if you're the one getting frustrated, I don't think that's the way to convey the character getting frustrated, because you're just getting frustrated and you might just stop playing the game and you'll get out of there. I think there are other ways to convey, through story, through emotion, through voice acting, that a character is being frustrated. You don't literally need to feel the frustration. If you're watching a movie and there's a character getting frustrated on screen, right? You don't need to literally feel that frustration. You just need to empathize with it or understand it, but you don't need to actually feel it. I don't think frustration is something you want players to necessarily feel. I wouldn't strive for that, definitely. But that was just the first thing that came to my mind. But I really just want to hear I wanted to hear what you guys had to say about it, because it's a really interesting conversation that comes up.
I'm only frustrated by levers that don't seem to do anything.
You just got to pull it.
Isn't this I mean, in some ways, that with the question to talk about tedious things like grinding is one of those things that everyone has experienced, that having to just go out and do random stuff just to get to the next point is kind of like frustrating. I mean, I don't like it personally. I think though the idea of something being frustrating, I would prefer the word friction, and maybe some level of, hey, you add friction to a game in order to get a result. That shouldn't necessarily be frustrating. If it is making players frustrated, you're probably doing it slightly wrong. They should be feeling a sense of some sort of friction, of some sort of like, I need to do this. It doesn't have to be a very negative experience, and perhaps there's a way to make it a positive one, but without making it just like, this sucks over here, so I'm not going to go over here yet because I'm just mad whenever I go into this area.
That's a really good point. Like, make it engaging.
I think I'm going to take the fancy pants artist example of this to go like just really lean into the pretension on this topic. I think that I actually had this conversation with somebody last night on the Ukraine GameDev thing. That there's a community being set up, and the idea came up about this kind of almost identical topic. And I think what's interesting is people often think, what's the point of games? And people say, oh, games are for fun. It's like, well, no, we've established there's such things as non-fun games that we enjoy that for different reasons. So it's not about fun. It's about either engagement or immersion, right? There's something you can be depressed from a really sad game and still like it. So it can't be fun. So we throw that off the table. That some games will be fun, but that's not the point. And so I would say, well, what is it? And I was listening to an audiobook on my walks called Happy by Darren Brown, where he talks about the origins of Stoicism and how people engage with happiness. And it's the interesting takeaway for me is that they said people are storytellers, and everything in your life is a story, whether it's who you are as a person, what kind of things you do in your life, how you engage with things. It's also constructing a narrative. So when you talk about a non-story game like Minecraft, it still got, even before they introduced the story stuff, it had a story, which is your brave fight against the night and surviving and getting supplies, and you would construct your own narrative. And so all that is to say, a good narrative has flow. It has peaks and valleys. And some of those valleys are where it gets tedious and struggling. And so it's not about, it's balance, as we described. It's not about too much or too little or whatever. It comes down to what you as a storyteller are trying to say. Example that comes to mind would be Nier and Nier Replicant specifically. There's a portion of that game which is this tedious cycle of bringing supplies back and forth between two villages. And that is tedious. And I was very, very frustrated by repeating these same steps over and over again. And the thing is, that's the point, because narratively, I was a character in a mundane, repetitious life, and that was it directly affected the narrative of who I was as a character. That when things changed, it like built a story arc between me and the players playing the game. So I guess the general point would be, yes, frustration conceptually is bad, but in all these things, grinding, like you don't feel ownership of something unless you put work in to get it. So grinding shouldn't be about grinding to pad time or to justify spending to unlock it, like those horrible situations. But in games like Pokemon, if you didn't grind, you wouldn't feel like you've been through the wars with your Pokemon. It would just be another thing you could add or remove from your party. It's the act of tediously doing the same fights and nearly dying and surviving and upgrading and choosing things that you build that connection. So it's a careful turn of phrase, but I would say it is actually good to frustrate players when it narratively fits the bill, and you have to be aware of how that arc goes. It's not about frustration as an ongoing thing. It has to follow a story arc of you have a baseline, you have some conflict, you have to then go through some frustration to overcome the conflict. You get better, you then give people power. They're now feeling top of the world again. Now you coast to a nice easy place so they get to like enjoy their powers, play test and see how things are going. More conflict and repeat and repeat and repeat. And that's how you get people engaged in a story. So it's not that you can't do it, you just have to include it as part of a healthy breakfast of like steps that make a good game, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You have to include it as part of something else. You have to earn it as the developer. You can't just frustration for the sake of frustration, right? Like as you're saying, that makes a lot of sense. It has to be worth it for the player, and there's either the carrot at the end or as you said, you worded it perfectly. I don't say anything.
And just because Mr. Turkey Jerky there is trying to be a smartass and saying, "What's the story of Pong?" Well, actually, okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Tell me if you and your friend. Okay, here's an example. When I was a kid and I had a babysitter, and he had a Super Nintendo and he had Street Fighter Alpha 2. And whenever we played Street Fighter Alpha 2, I would pick Ryu, he would pick Ken. Narratively, inside those games, one of them was training the other, depending on which version of the lore. Sometimes they join at the same time. It's whatever. But I always looked at it as I'm the guy in the white gi learning from the master of the guy in the red gi, and we would fight, and he'd kick my ass because he was like 5 years older than me. And every time we'd play, the first thing I'd do is like get the game. I'm going to kick your ass. So the narrative was me training to beat this older person who was like better at the game and learning. So you can't tell me when you're playing Pong with your friend that there isn't a rivalry of some kind, of some narrative of you trying to win or beat them or whatever else. It may not be outspoken. You're not going to see it show up on screen, but every game is a narrative of some kind, and the story may be outside the game. But like, you can't say Pong doesn't have a narrative if you're playing against your friend who's beaten you at 50 games of Pong in a row, and you have a chance to beat him this time. That is a very strong narrative, and you will feel it, you know?
And I think the more abstract the game gets, the more meta the narrative can become, right? Because you have to apply it to yourself and to the person you're playing against, like if it's Pong or if it's chess, you know?
Yeah, I think Frederick hit the nail on the head there. A lot of times frustration is added just to do in-app purchasing, which is a terrible
That's
mechanic.
not the way, yeah.
But I do. Someone else mentioned like, oh, games are great when they make grinding fun, you know, and I would flip that and say games are great when you don't need to grind, when the progression of the game through the story is such that, generally speaking, you will get to where you need to be about the time that you need to be there, and you don't need to spend an extra hour just fighting random things in order to progress in the game. Instead, I would say, hey, add another quest that takes an hour that gives you the exact same result, but lets you have more story.
Well, just think about why grinding was, for the most part, added to games, right? They're mostly added to these monthly subscription games. It's partially, I think, where they started, because they want you to be spending a lot of hours. They want to bloat the length of the experience so that you could spend more time in there and keep your subscription in, hold your subscription, keep you playing until the next patch is released with the next big update that has you adds more story for you to play.
The worst of all time, though, the one that I will never forgive, and I would drop off a boat if I met the developers of the team of that, even though it's probably not their fault, is one of my favorite games of all time. I have all the box sets behind me and nice big fancy collector's edition things, is Dungeon Keeper. Dungeon Keeper is a fantastic game. But what makes the game fun is, if you haven't played it, You have a dungeon heart. You are a bad guy in the underground dungeon, and you are literally, rather than building like you would in Age of Empires, you are underground. You are mining out the shapes. So the room shapes, you have to dig out the tunnels and shapes yourself. But the upshot of this is when you break open into an existing mine or cave or cavern, enemies can rush in and attack you. And so you have to make sure that those corridors you've built have traps. So you can build in like tower defense style complicated mazes and interesting things to try to, like, for example, make a straight line, put a boulder trap on one end, and the first enemy to hit it's going to cause the boulder to kill everyone down the path. So the point is, the fun part of that game is playtesting the designs of dungeons, because certain rooms being 3x3 would have a different effect on your dungeon. For example, if you wanted to get mages, who were really powerful and badass in my opinion, they like libraries. You couldn't just build units, you would have to build a bigger library, which would entice magicians to come to your base. And so different creatures like different things. And so the shape of your dungeon was part of the gameplay. Now, they built a mobile version of Dungeon Keeper, and you had to pay for gems to break a single block. And if you didn't, you would have to wait 24 hours for that time to come up for you to build another block. So the game became, you could roughly break 3 or 4 blocks per hour, unless you were paying, in which case you might be able to break 20 blocks an hour. Meanwhile, in the original game, you could break as much as you like. That's not the point, right? The point of the game was structuring a good battle strategy and building an interesting base. And so not only is it like annoying, it fundamentally broke what felt to me to be the entire like philosophical point of the game. Because I remember being in college, I was still playing it in college years later. It was the first game I ever got on PC, and I was still playing it when I was in college. I used to get grid-lined paper, and I would literally have colored pencils, and I'd be going, okay, I'll put a acid trap there and a freeze trap, and I'd be ignoring the lectures, and I would be drawing layouts for mazes of what might stop some particular boss because it was starting to defeat me or whatever. And that fun is gone when you can't play around with the building portion. So that to me is the most egregious example of someone not only adding it to make the game worse, it fundamentally broke the gameplay. And to a lesser extent, you can say the same thing about Shadow of Mordor versus Shadow of War. They're the same game, and the technology is better in Shadow of War, but they actively changed the flow of the game to require this external shop to basically raffle for new creatures, new guys to join your team with different perks and abilities and poisons and stuff. And you can feel it. The tempo and flow of the game struggles because they actively expect you to engage with those mechanics. And if you don't, you're grinding in a non-fun way, unlike the original game, where it had an arc that was built around what was in the game, so there was none of this external nonsense that ruined it. So I'm definitely agree that kind of shoehorning in grind for the sake of grind is not only asinine, it often defeats the game itself and breaks the structure of the gameplay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
how does that game hold up today?
I'll put it this way, I don't play it.
Oh, okay.
I played like a few hours of it, and I got really, like, the game has a particular flow where it's perfectly fine for a while in the intro section. Then it gets a bit difficult, but like it's fine. You can still play normally. But then there's like the post game in the third act, I'd say, narratively. The third act of the story is you're meant to like conquer regions, build a big army. And that portion of the game requires you to engage in all this stuff. So when I got to there and I was like, I can feel it's different. I can feel they've left the reins and they expect me now to engage in all this extra stuff where there's like an external war board and all this stuff. I'm like, you know what? We're done. I played the part of the game that you engaged with me on. Now that you're playing this nonsense, I'm out. And I think they did later on rebalance certain stuff, but like it's too late now. Like you lost my interest once you actively broke your own game to support these cheesy mechanics.
I think in all these situations, you take something that clearly works well, that people like, they're willing to pay for a one-time, to buy the game. You say, okay, well, if we make this cool mechanic, this cool thing that everybody likes, let's just make that something you have to pay for. Then people will pay for it. And it's like, wait, no, you're just making a shitty product all of a sudden. And yes, some people will pay for it because they do like the game still, but they're not going to be happy about it. And in the end, you're going to end up losing a lot of people because they're not going to pay in the first place. And they'll never even find out that the game is so cool because they're never even going to try. Like even like somebody mentioned Diablo, it keeps crashing on my phone, but I know there's microtransactions, so I'm pretty sure I'm not going to really like it because of that. So it keeps crashing, and I haven't even tried in the last week to fix it because I'm like, well, I probably won't even like it anyway. So, I'd be willing to try it, but I'm not engaged at the beginning. I would probably pay $20 if it was a standalone game, $30 if it was a standalone game, but not gonna engage with that.
Brief note, because we're talking about Dungeon Keeper. I do have the 2 boxes over there. I'm not going to get them out because forget about it. But one thing that I do want to show you is if you search online for Dungeon Keeper figurine, I think the second game came with a collector's edition figurine, and it looks derpy as hell. It's horrible. No one wants to own it. It looks like a child's toy that's broken. Whoever designed that, again, horrible mess. But there's some really great 3D printed ones and models that people have done. And my friend Nick, who is a 3D printer and also paints Warhammer figurines and stuff, he did this for me. And so this is the Horned Reaper from Dungeon Keeper.
Oh, nice. That looks
badass.
amazing. That looks sick.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. So he's one of my rubber ducks when I need to solve particularly tough programming problems.
Oh, actually, speaking of Warhammer, Jason. Oh, and that was directed at Jason, but he's gone.
He's not in the mood to talk about Warhammer. He's leaving.
Yeah, because looking at his game, they just released Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate, which is kind of has a similar gameplay, top down. Maybe something he'd want to explore playing as inspiration for what he's working on. I don't know if you heard me or not, but
yeah, I did. I'll check it out. I was just trying to fix.
Speaking of that Nemesis system,
stupid internet problem. I wish it would get better.
Warhammer 40k, Chaos Gate, Demon Hunters. It's got like 8 names, of course, because it's Warhammer.
I'm gonna get that one loaded up and ready. Something to try out this week.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a couple different things for inspiration, so I think that'll be perfect.
I have another one for you. I'll pull it up. I forget the name now, but I'll pull it up.
Oh yeah, definitely share it if you can find it. I wanted to really quickly start the giveaway. So for anybody who wanted to win the JetBrains Rider license, just 18 assassins, lots of pals. The lowest number are necromancers, which life tap. So every time they hit, they steal, I think, 3 life. I don't remember all their other stats. And then we got lots of dragons, only 2 knights, 2 specters, 2 snakes, 31 dragons and 3 snakes, 2 specters. So if you want to enter to win, all you have to do is type in chat which race class combo you want. I'm going to hit the button in about 2 minutes. So you've got about a minute to type in what one you want and be in there. I'm going to stop talking about that now, let everybody enter, and then I'll hit the button.
I was just going to say, because it was mentioned that the name for the AI system in the
when we started off.
The name of the AI system in the Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor games was the Nemesis system, and I really recommend looking up videos on that because it's fascinating. My understanding is I can't remember if they're using hierarchical task planning or goal-oriented action planning, but they're using one of those two for, I think it's the hierarchical task planning for their AI, and it's really interesting talking about how they engage with AI. We've talked about this before on previous ones where it's effectively A-star pathfinding, but for decision making. But it's really interesting to look up that. I think it's a GDC talk where they go into detail about how it works, and yeah, it's very cool.
Well, it seems like an interesting one to check out. Nemesis things, I think that could be cool too. I mean, I don't want to necessarily, I think, because then their Nemesis system, don't they also have them like go after and target those enemies and stuff? It's not.
Yeah, like you'll literally be in a combat, and then someone who you thought died will come back and say, "You thought you got me," and you like try to join in the fight and stab you in the back and stuff. You don't need to be that complicated though. The example that comes to mind is in Perfect Dark on the N64. They had the multiplayer mode for that, had a bunch of AIs that you could choose their behavior. And the behaviors would be like the judge, who would always try to hunt down somebody, whoever last killed somebody, they'll go after those. Or you would have the coward, who would always run and kill the person who's currently doing the worst, or whatever. And so it's a really simple mechanic, but you'd basically have a bunch of different personality types. Where one character would always try to kill the person who killed them last, or whatever. And that was just really interesting. So you can give some really basic behaviors that players will internalize themselves and make their own narratives around. And they actually talked about that on that talk about the Nemesis system, how yes, there is a story, and yes, the characters do have some memory, but it's really up to you how you play the game to kind of construct this narrative. Oh, I killed that guy, and then he came back, and then this happened. And it's a personal narrative you're constructing about the characters. So yeah, it's interesting, but you don't need to be as complicated as you think you do. You just need to give people enough of a hook to build their own personal adventure around.
All right, I'm gonna hit the button on this giveaway. So if you haven't entered, you're gonna go, and the winner will get a rider license. I got words. I guess we'll see how that goes. To kick it off, I'll leave it big for the first fight. Son, have you seen the fights yet? They go in and they run down and they battle. It's a single elimination. So each character will fight. They'll line up in their battle. They move a little bit slow to their positions for the first round because they're randomizing the fight, and then whichever one is standing will go back up into the rafters for the next fight, and then the other one will be dead.
Wait, is this the audience?
Gone. They also power bats.
It is.
Oh my god!
So they go
And
through the
Jason's
battle.
story's about to die.
This is so cool.
Yeah, so those are the winners. The winners will go back up. You see, they level up.
One of these days, I'll get a rider license.
And so, are you inputting this live as people are putting in their roles?
It's automatic,
Yeah, it reads
right?
from the chat API, so it just watches the YouTube chat API.
Oh yeah, we should have had you type in a character before it started.
That's all good. I'll do it next time for sure.
I actually never participated until last week.
Didn't enter. Oh man, I should enter. It just reads the chat API, parses through, and looks for any of the words like rat, assassin, demon. I was looking at the ones on the chat. Any of the classes and races. If you pick one, then it sets you to that, and you can change it. And if you only pick one, it just randomizes the other.
And inspired by Unreal Tournament, I wrote some additional little messages in the bottom left thing. So the little snarky comments that come up that related to people dying is
I love
I added a few of those.
Nice. And so if you say like rat, it'll actually assign you like
little stuff, but it was all random. Oh, I cut out. I was saying it was random for a while initially with like a random number generator, but that's not nearly as fun to watch. So turned it into a little game that's random, but has some consequences for your choices that nobody really understands.
Who's winning right now?
It looks
with
like
116 people to go. It looks like there's going to be a few more.
A lot of people.
It's gonna be a while.
Entered right now. I got a little time scale slider. Just crank that up or down. You can make them fight faster, get through rounds quicker. Sorry, whoever's gonna die fast. Oh, that's a long fight. Jeez, the blue and the red guy were fighting forever there. I'm glad I sped that one. Yeah, it's a cool little system though.
Whoa, what is that pink blob? What is that even?
Oh, that's the beholder.
Okay.
So the eyeball option there, you can pick. It looks like there are 4 of them.
Got it.
And by the way, just because it's coming up in the chat and we're talking about it, just there we go.
And then let's see, is he gonna win or is he gonna lose to that rat?
Nice. What about the world is not enough? Somebody brought that one up.
Yeah, it's up there, but I'm not. I have about 264 games. I'm not going to go grab them all. You can just about see them in the top left corner there if it sort of focuses out. So they're all up there, but these are the only 2 that I have currently on hand right now. So they're Perfect Dark. Or Perfect Dark here is particularly great.
Yeah, these are all the characters. Eventually, I was going to put Andrew's characters.
Yeah, we need to do a live stream
in here too.
We need to do a live
one
stream.
Of the things
replacing them.
Yeah, I got to do the visual. Sorry, my internet's cutting out. But the part I want to figure out is how to do the visual upgrades on them and make them do blend shapes. So they start off as like the small weenie versions, and then they get bigger and buffer and add armor every time. I think it would be really cool. All right, let's shrink those back down. Everybody can watch themselves fight in the little window there, and we'll see who wins at the end. So were there other questions that you guys wanted to pop up and talk about? Internet is dying. I was asking if there are any other questions or things you guys wanted to pop up and talk about.
I haven't seen any questions come up in particular that I wanted to talk about.
Cool. Yeah, I'll start watching now. So if you guys have some game dev questions, if my internet doesn't completely die out, feel free to just drop them in chat now and we'll start popping them up and going through them. So if you got Unity questions, design stuff, dev stuff, how to ruin your internet connection, you can ask me that too. Apparently, you just have to do something where you're streaming. That's simple enough. Let's see. Can you call yourself an N64 gamer if you didn't have the expansion? Is that Jason?
With the expansion.
Oh, no. Yeah, so basically, I don't know if you can see it in the box there, right in the top corner of this here, focuses, it says requires the expansion pack. So basically, at one point, the N64, they wanted to do more, but you couldn't use the existing system. And so you had to buy an expansion memory pack that you would literally, most of us would get a knife and jam out the one that comes with the console, and you'd plug in this extra powerful one. In fact, I have a particularly traumatizing childhood memory of Zelda Ocarina of Time was my favorite game for longest time. I've literally got like 8 copies of various different special editions back there. And when Majora's Mask came out, I desperately wanted the game, but I couldn't afford it as a kid. And so I eventually saved up a lot of money, went and got it. And I brought it home and I plugged it into the console. Really, it was a gold cart, which is extra cool. You turn it on, and I got a nice spinning message that said, "You need an expansion pack to play this game." And I stared at that in like, I think I actually cried, because I've been waiting for that game for so long, and it doesn't work if you don't have this expansion pack. And so it wasn't until a week later that a friend of mine who was a musician over in, I think they were in Douglas at the time. But anyway, so he came to visit, and I basically told him the story. He's like, "Right, we're going to go find one right now." And we went on an adventure to go and check like 12 stores and found one and saved the day. But I'll never forget that moment of sitting down, like clearing my calendar, closing all the lights, telling everyone to leave me alone, turning it on, and getting the, "Nope, you don't have the little thing you need," that I didn't even know existed until right now.
So
That hurt.
disappointing.
That hurt.
That's funny. I didn't even know that thing existed at all.
Oh, I have a whole
Something new.
series of N64 related trivia. There's like a whole load of things that people don't realize. There's plugins. There's the Z64. There's the CD64, 64DD. There's a whole load of stuff.
I think it's the DD, the one that allows you to access parts of games that you've never accessed before. Like, for example, F-Zero X has a whole level editor in the D. I think that's on the DD, right?
So basically, yeah, there's a second cartridge. A lot of people know the classic N64 cartridges, but there's a second like rectangular cartridge. And what happens is, if you ever turn the N64 upside down, there's a kind of socket at the back, and that was meant to clip onto another device, kind of like how you've got the Tower of Power with the Sega stuff. And then that bottom one had a second cartridge. It never came out over here. It briefly came out in Japan for, I think it only lasted like 6 months or something. It didn't sell very well. In fact, technically, Majora's Mask was meant to come out on the DD and have real life time that would work in real time, but that, because it didn't, and they had to put it onto the original, that's why the time system works like it does in Majora's Mask, because they just simply never had the resources for this external pack that they were building the original prototype on. So yeah, that extra card has a bunch of extra stuff. There's a whole load of extra like demos and stuff and games people have made, but yeah, that entire piece of hardware never made it across the water, unfortunately.
Yeah, we didn't see any of that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't.
There's a lot we
There's
missed out as.
There's a question on DevOps tools and agile tools. I don't use any DevOps tools personally in general. My stream is telling me it's having connection issues here. But I was curious, are there anything you guys would recommend DevOps wise that you definitely use? Like, I know Chris would have 1.5 million ideas of things, but do you use anything in your pipeline to really automate or do stuff outside of the agile? Let's just skip the planning part real quick. Do you use any actual tools in your deployment stuff for game development?
I use Git for everything. If it's going to be a project that is delivered to clients, I will often set it up with Unity Cloud Build. You can set that up either through Git or from Plastic. Then if it's for VR and it's a kiosk style application, we'll usually set up something like Manage XR, which is a kind of a third-party platform that lets you install an app kind of launcher, kind of like imagine the Android launcher on a VR headset. And then it'll automatically synchronize and download latest versions from their server for upload. So you don't have to download to the device. It's kind of like its own little mini app store. So if you're somebody like selling a product to clients and they don't have to mess with installing apps and updates and versions, you can install this onto the device, give it to their clients, and then when you update it on the website, it'll say there's an update. They do the downloads. You can have multiple apps. You can lock out features remotely on the app. You can have licensing and all sorts of stuff. So I've used that sometimes. Other than that, not really. I mean, sometimes I'll do pre and post build steps. If you don't know, when you post a cloud build, it'll call a function in your project before and after. It does the build, so there's some stuff you can do there. Yeah, there's some things, but nothing particularly interesting that I can think of. It's more about what you need, and oftentimes a lot of that stuff can be trumped by just pressing the button, doing a build, and sending someone an APK or whatever. It's only if it starts to add actual value, and I find that aside from the usual make your class libraries, I'll automate that. I've mentioned that before. I don't want to copy DLLs over. So if I'm using class libraries over in Visual Studio, or I keep saying Visual Studio or Writer, I will make my own MS build file, which will copy the output directory files into Unity so that Unity can recompile in the background while I'm working without having for me to like manually drag stuff over. I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else that comes to mind.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that I would recommend except for some build automation tools that as soon as you start actually giving it to people. If you're giving it to people more than once, like you're doing it 2-3 times, starting to do it regularly, I would say definitely automate that.
I do think Game Driver is something I'm looking at recently, and I have
anymore. Unless I'm in a big project, then we'll automate stuff and try to set it up. If there's a big team, you really want to kind of automate and make it as good as possible. But that really depends on the scenario and setup.
I do think Game Driver is going to make it into my workflow soon, though. Both Game Driver and Odin Validator are two things that I'm genuinely looking to add. Currently, I've got 4 projects with Odin Validator that I'm currently testing out that is going quite well. I've not found a good use case to try at Game Driver yet, but I fully intend to, and I have a strong feeling that's going to be part of the future, my release sort of process,
Yeah, Odin's been a part for me too lately. For anything that's not like a course related or U related thing, I tend to just pull it in and start using it. I find it super useful and handy. And I mean, out of everything, the thing that I use the most, surprisingly, is still the time scale one. To go in there and just adjust the time scale of my game, just hit that static inspector so you can go modify the values of static properties in your static class. Freezing up in my times, but I have that one docked so that it's nice and easy to use. Oh, Snarf says he had a 1-year license from the inspector like to give away for second place. I'll have to check with the Odin guys on that first before we let people give away their things on there. But we might be able to do something like that, or they might even have some to give away, which would be kind of cool.
One other thing, because we were talking about it too with N64 games. I still play them, as you can imagine. I have an N64 over there, but I don't play them there very often these days. These days, I use my good friend here, which is I play all of my games on this, and so I have my full suite of.
Is that
N64.
Snowboard Kids? Did you just pass by Snowboard Kids? No way.
I have basically a whole load of there's 1080.
That's 1080. Okay.
But I do have
Snowboard
all those,
Kids.
and so
Yeah.
so that's the N64. But I also have Game Boy Advance, Master System, and whatever.
That's awesome.
And then for each one of those, you can go in and see your games. And then I have my own favorites. Oh yeah, and there's PlayStation, PSP, Vectrex. Vectrex is fun to play, actually. You'd be surprised.
What is this called? What is this thing called?
And these are my personal favorites. So this was Dark Rift on the N64. Demon Crest, Diddy Kong Racing. And so these are the ones I'm playing somewhat regularly at the moment. Earthbound, I'm playing for the first time. And XG2 was fantastic. So as for what this device actually is, there's so many of them. Like, there's not one device. It's just the whole concept of gaming emulation these days it's a big topic. There's tons of them. This is the Anbernic. This is the Anbernic. What is it? 351P, but there's also the 351V. I have so many of these. Like here's another one that's the same thing, but in Game Boy form factor. So I've got different ones of those. Then I have here's the one I play on the most, which is the 522, which is the Big Daddy version of that one.
Oh,
So
wow.
I have a lot of these. Either way, the point is look into emulation these days. They're well, like I said, I have games. Like it's illegal to get illegal ROMs, but like if you have your games, you can upload your games. You know, I have buckets over there of all of my original Xbox games and stuff too. So I've quite a few of them. Anyway, yeah, it's a fun hobby. So have a look at emulation.
Yeah,
That's
those things are
amazing.
cool. What was that main one you were showing called again? What was the name of it?
This is the one I recommend people would get, or this one, depending on whether you prefer Game Boy or the kind of Game Boy Advanced thing. The basic idea here is it's purely down to screen resolution. Like if you're playing Game Boy games, the 4:3 aspect ratio looks better on a Game Boy style device. And if you're playing 16:9 style PlayStation or PSP or any of those games, they look better on these kinds of devices. This one in particular is the one I recommend, and it is the RG351P. Ah, that's a surprise. How much do you think?
And where
one
do
of
you
these
buy it
costs?
off?
How much do they
Well,
cost?
Have a guess.
I already saw, so I'll stay quiet.
$299.
$351.
You can get these for like this one here is like $70.
What?
This one here is a bit more. That's about 150. So it depends which one you're going for. This one's about 200 and something. But the idea is depends on the screen resolution, the processor power, and whatever. For example, you won't be able to play N64 on this, but you will be able to play PSP, PS1, and N64 on this. You'll be able to play Dreamcast and other stuff. So it depends on the processing power of what it is you're going for.
Where's the one that plays GameCube games? That's the one I.
Actually, you can play GameCube games on this one, or if you want to go really crazy, wait until the Steam Deck is actually available, and the Steam Deck will literally play badly Switch games all the way up to Switch. So you can play pretty much every game from all of your previous consoles, which is crazy.
I will wait for the Steam Deck.
Yeah, I had to look it up.
I
The
own all
original
the
Game
GameCube
Boy
games.
was $90 when it came out in 1989.
Although, if I'm playing original Game Boy, I don't play on any of those. I play on...
So what's that, like $500 in today's dollars,
I'm
Andrew?
looking that up now too.
And $89.
$212.
Oh,
For doing original Game Boy, I play on this bad boy instead. This is the Analog Pocket, which is like the Porsche of Game Boys. It's got a screen that's 10 times the resolution of the original Game Boy.
Porsche.
Although I actually have 3 original Game Boys. One of them completely original, nothing changed. One of them that's got a high resolution screen replacement in it. That's used. It's a whole lot. Yeah, this is a hobby of mine I don't talk about, but trust me, I've been collecting these things for a while. So, everything else interesting to show. Oh yeah, if you want something to fit in your pocket, this one I recommend. This is cheap enough as well. It's about 70 quid. This is the Fun Key. And so, relatively speaking, if we say this is the Game Boy, and then, you know, my phone here, this is the size of this thing, and you probably won't be able to see it, but like it'll play Game Boy and PlayStation and various stuff on there. So
How do you even play that on that one? You need like
I play
tiny hands.
Mario 64 on this. It's not fun, but it's playable.
Mario 64?
Yeah.
You need to show us.
Well, I'll show you
plug
Mario
in
Land.
your external monitor and your keyboard at Starbucks.
Well, here's just a quick Mario Land because it's it is first. I don't know if you can see the screen there, but you know.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Look at
You
him
can
go.
play it backwards too.
Yeah.
1,000 games in your pocket.
So yeah, and there you go. There's another hobby to waste all your money on.
Go play the games that you played again. Oh, that Sunflower.
Currently, my favorite is one called Wario Blast. I'm playing a lot of Wario Blast. I used to love that as a kid. It's basically Bomberman, but it's Bomberman versus Wario. And Wario is the character I play as because he's the evil one. And you basically fight waves of different Bomberman characters, and then there's a boss round where there's like a really cool big boss dropping bombs and fighting you at the end of each round. That one's always good fun.
So who's are we down to like just a few now?
In the last
this
15.
battle?
Salim was jealous of them. He's in chat, by the way. Everybody's talking to Salim down there in chat, but he's not in the stream this week. I assume he'll be back next week. By the way, before I forget, I wanted to mention something for next week, and this is somewhat important for everybody watching. So before I say it, hit thumbs up and subscribe so that you remember to come back next week. Because after the show next week, what I want to do is I've been working on setting up these mastermind groups for people.
Oh no.
And it's going very, very second. There we go. Let's stop for setup. They're essentially a group of people, developers, to get together once a week, talk about their game development progress, help each other through things. Just meet for an hour a week. It's just a low commitment, but easy thing to do that kind of help people push progress. And I've set up a system for it to matchmake people, but it's been really, really slow. So next week after the show, I'm going to do a live matchmaking event. So we'll do it in Gather. I'm going to set it up with a special setup so that people can join one of these mastermind groups. It'll make it really easy for people to go find the one that kind of fits into what it is that they want to do and get into a group right away and start meetings as soon as next week. So, or I guess it'd be the week after next because we'll do it this next week. And I might do two of them, like one after the show and then one a different day of the week so people can jump in and join. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you're just here at least by the end of the show next week. And we'll give out the info. So you can jump in and join it. And I'll also email everybody about running next week if possible. So if you're interested and want to get in quick, that'd be the perfect opportunity to do it. So we're down to 5 people in the giveaway. I guess we can watch the last battlers. We got 2 dragons. Not a surprise. There were more dragons than everything else combined, I think. And a wizard, warrior, and berserker. So who do you guys think's gonna win? The lizard berserker? I think he is.
I think it's
I'm
going
gonna
to be a
give it
dragon.
to
I think it's dragon.
Wizard berserker. I think the dragon's health, and I don't think that it scales nearly as well as the lizards, which is crit chance.
It's the lizard. It's the lizard.
Yeah, I think the lizard. But I mean, I could be wrong. It depends on what the
Wait.
races are. Dude. I feel like the dragon warrior's got to have.
Yeah, it's a
ridiculous-
lizard. Lizard's gonna kick ass.
Yeah, the berserker lizard is doing good. But this dragon warrior, I don't know what their health's gonna be. It's gonna be like 200 and something, I think. If I'm.
Is this the
if
final battle?
Yeah, this is it. This is the
Let's go.
final battle to see who's gonna win it.
And it's going to freeze.
5 health. I got to fix that text.
No, that's not freezing. That's building tension. That's
Yeah.
dramatic storytelling. So there's-
Exactly.
Dun dun
All part of the
dun.
plan.
All right, who's gonna win it? Ooh, it's close. Oh man,
Oh, dragon warrior.
who's got it?
I think it's
this
dragon
is
warrior.
even.
Dragon
No,
warrior
I'm
brings out the
I'm
crits.
sticking with the lizard. It's gonna be the lizard.
No,
I'm
it's
giving
dragon
it to a
warrior.
wizard,
Watch,
too.
dragon. Dan
Why do you
Copper,
guys
come
keep
on, let's
changing
go,
your bets in the
Dan.
middle of combat.
Oh.
Dragging all the way, man.
Congratulations, Dan. Send me an email and I will send you over your 1-year JetBrains rider license. Congrats. That's freaking awesome. That was a very nice surprise comeback.
Big comeback.
Well, hey Salim, how's it going?
Hello. Hello.
You can see you here finally. So we just got the winner there. I was just getting ready to wrap things up. I don't know if you guys have anything. Did you have you wanted to bring up or wait till next week? So my internet is falling
no,
apart.
we-
That's why.
Yeah, you are like freezing. I keep thinking you're playing freeze tag or something. Nah, I'm good. I just popped on because Jason was making me jealous. I ordered my Odin. I've been playing my Mister and all kinds of stuff, man. I'm
Oh,
going
nice.
out
But
there.
you have an Iron Odin, do you?
I ordered one.
Nice. I was going to order one of those, but they're so hard to get that I thought I've got my order in. I put my order in 9 months ago for the Steam Deck, so I'm like,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
no point to me. There's no point to me putting my order in for an Odin, waiting for like 6 months, and then maybe getting a Steam Deck another 3 months later.
I'm just like splitting my bets because I need something. I'm playing. I introduced my wife to Secret of Mana yesterday, so we were going through the hell of that, playing multiplayer and that. But I've been playing Earthbound and Guardian Legend and all kinds of crazy stuff. Which once again, an unsung soundtrack is Guardian Legend. It's so good. But yeah, man, you got me going nuts. Every time you
Yeah,
show
it's
those
good
things,
stuff.
I want to fly out there and just hang out with you for a week.
Oh yeah, like we can do the full tour. I can show you like all of the original Game Boys, all of the upgraded ones. I can then take out the headphone collection. You can try all of those out. Then we can do the retro consoles over here. We can do the whole shebang. Yeah, that'll be good fun.
There's a console called the Retron 5 or something, and you can like put in basically
Yeah, like 5 different carts into it.
Yeah,
I had to
it's
look
pretty
at that.
crazy.
I was
It's like the
tempted, but the only,
Polymega, but Polymega isn't like shipping broadly now. But the Polymega you have to buy the things for, and the Retron 5 with entry, it's
Yeah.
like $90 or some shit.
there is a problem though. If you're being really hardcore about it, the problem with the Retron is that it is emulation. So all it's doing is reading the data and then emulating everything. So
Yeah.
there's no original hardware at all, and that's fine for
Yeah,
most
yeah.
things, but it can lead
Yeah.
to some weird scaling issues for certain things. Unlike the Analog Pocket, which is using hardware, like this is actually rendering the game the original way, just 10x the resolution. So it really depends what you're going for. But I thought about getting one, but I have a modded Xbox over there with all the Xbox games loaded onto it, and I've got a modded what else have I got? I've got one of those, the mini SNESes. So I've got one of those with all of the stuff on it. So there's no real need for me to go adding more.
Couldn't you run the Retron through like a FrameMeister or something?
I actually, instead of FrameMeister, I have the.
You have the like CC. What's it called?
The one. It's the red and black USB or HDMI one.
Yeah.
I forgot the name
I
of it.
forget
But
what it's called. I know. What you're talking about.
I do have one of those, and it's good, but they all have some consequences.
Yeah,
the one that really kills me is N64. I have I think it's called a Hunter 64. It's a custom modded N64 thing with like a clear plastic shell, because to get an actual modded HDMI, for people who don't know, it's a whole separate conversation. But unlike the really old analog consoles, which you can get really clear footage out of because it's like analog, the N64 had a 480p resolution. So no matter what you do to it, no matter how big of a screen you plug it into, it's going to look like crap. The N64 just doesn't do well unless it's in an emulator. But it did support SVGA, just not through the adapter that you've got. There's certain versions of the consoles, I think the Japanese ones, that did have that. So if you want to, you can get up to 720, but you have to literally open and mod the board. And so I haven't bothered going through the whole hassle of getting an N64, opening it and modding it. So there's other solutions that do so. It's frustrating. Of all of the consoles to be a fan of, the N64 is the one that forever will go down in history as the hardest to emulate because of the way it was built, which is really frustrating. So.
And so many good games on the N64. Oh my god! All right, sorry, I caused a tangent.
No, you're good.
Sorry.
These tangents are what the show's all about. So it's the whole point.
But all right, yeah, that's all I had to say. Sorry, my house is loud.
I did wrap stuff up. There's another one of those mega bundles up, and I haven't grabbed it yet, but I was going to grab it because there's a couple things in here that I definitely want to get, and it was for charity, so I figured double, why not? Like there's this Toon VFX pack that I'm definitely going to grab, and there was a sci-fi shader one, especially if I'm mixing in the sci-fi thing, this would definitely make sense. I was thinking about using this for we were talking about like the fights and like focusing characters. I was thinking like I could do like a shader like that kind of like focuses them somehow with some effect like this. I don't know, maybe just like outlines everything else. I'm not sure exactly what, but there were a couple really cool things in here, and it was a good deal for charity. So I figured to make sure that we shared it, and it's in chat and in the description as well. If you want to go check it out.
Those VFX packs are basically how I learned VFX. Like you just open them up and you can like reverse engineer them and figure out how they did things, and so you figure out how to do things yourself. And there's such a big variety of like effects on those packs. It's absurd.
The one that, so I've already bought that pack, and the one that particularly jumped out to me is, those Toon ones are great. But for this particular set of stuff, I recently finished watching the new season of Stranger Things, and so that retro aesthetics pack with all of the like the fake VHS effects over the top and stuff, so good. That's it made me want to go and make a project with all of that really fantastically classic retro looking stuff. You know?
Oh wow, yeah, that's
Oh, yeah.
neat.
That's sick.
That's
so
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
You got a question, Jason, asking.
It's also in the
if
chat.
this-
Go ahead.
Oh,
I'm cutting
sorry.
out. You can talk.
No, it's okay. You got a question asking if this show has a Discord group, and if not, why?
No, there's not a Discord channel for it yet. There may be sometime in the future. We just have the little private one right now, but we might add something in the future. Jason's Story, however, has a Discord server that is linked down below if you support his coffee page. There's constant discussion in there. I got one too. You can check it out on the Patreon, but I'd definitely go check out Jason's Stories. And Andrew's got one as well, which is right here. We'll drop that directly in there so you can just hop in.
Yeah, I was going to say, basically, there's 3 other Discords, so there's not one specifically for this show. Although, as Jason was saying, my one, though, just a word of caution if you're looking for a link. You can join Andrew's and you can join Jason's, but mine is gated behind a Ko-fi donation because I don't want to deal with spam. And quite frankly, I'm a moderator in like 9 other Discords, and I get very fed up having to deal with all the spam. Yeah. So for my own one, I made a very clear rule. Minimum, whatever it is, like $2-3. I don't know what the minimum is, but that's the requirement to get access to my Discord. So it's on my Ko-fi. If you're interested, you can join that way.
You can't have a Discord for this channel anyway, because Candid Salim, you can't have me. I'm bad in Discord. I am completely unfiltered.
I have noticed. There's some of those comments.
Oh man,
you'd have to ban me from it in order to make one.
It's good stuff. Well, I wanted to say and back out again, so I'll just wrap it up real quick. Thanks to everybody for coming out and joining us, for being here with us live, for hitting the thumbs up button, subscribing, and sharing the stream. And if you have questions or comments afterwards, drop them down below. Read through all the comments. I try to reply to all of them. At the very least, hit thumbs up on them all. But if you have comments, just drop them down below. I'll try to answer them, and we'll try to talk about whatever you think is interesting next week. We're also going to be doing that mastermind thing next week, so make sure that you show up for
He should just type it.
Second. Anybody have any last second things that they want to say or share before we hit the button and say goodbye to everybody for the week?
Fix your internet.
I'm telling you, I'm going to get a second internet provider. That's it. We're done. We're going on to a backup internet provider. Andrew, you streaming this week?
I will be streaming. Not today, not tomorrow. Maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, next Sunday. Every single one. But I don't have a set schedule since I got the day job and life and stuff. But usually on my Discord, I will try to post streams when I have them upcoming, and doing that everyone. And the YouTube as well. If you go to the YouTube, you'll see if I do have any scheduled, that'll show up there.
And I got a couple of videos I'll be dropping this week. What about you, Jason? Anything going on?
No, not at the moment. Well, yes, actually, there's stuff going on, but nothing I can talk about just yet. There is some stuff. I will say, as a little bit of a teaser, I was telling Jason this earlier. I get a lot of questions about my productivity stuff, and my list of applications I use is now in the 15 or so, all configured to interplay with custom scripts and various things, and people are always asking me how I set it up. So I wanted to demonstrate that, but you have no idea how hard it is to unset up your automations to then reset it up for people and get everything going on set it up properly. So what I did this weekend is I took the time to install a virtual machine where I have a completely blank version of Windows, just so that I can start recording videos of my entire, if I had a brand new computer, here's all the apps I like using, here's why, here's stuff. That won't be anytime soon. I'm not making any promises. I've learned that lesson. But I will say I now have the environment set up that I plan to talk more about everything from void tools to using Flow Launcher and Obsidian and Eagle and the Amazing Marvin, and setting up all of the 15 or so apps I use and all the various configurations. So if there's anything particular that interests people, let me know. But that's something coming down the line.
So he promised it. You guys all heard it. He promised it just now. Perfect. It's coming down the line.
Definitely did.
It's a slow line, though. Just keep that in mind.
And you got a video coming out on your channel? You got anything coming out on your channel? I just popped it up and cut out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so the next episode for this will come out like next Sunday, and we'll be playing a game called AK Solotl, like Axolotl, but spelled with an AK, like AK-47. And that game is on Kickstarter right now, and they've passed over 100,000 subscribers, and they sent us a demo. And so we're doing an episode on their demo while they're live on Kickstarter. So that's coming out. So look for that. It's a pretty cool top-down game, kind of like Enter the Gungeon. So if you want to get notified, subscribe to the channel. Other than that, on Unity's channel, we'll be streaming every Wednesday. This Wednesday, we're playing community games. And the next one, we're interviewing the team behind the Unity game Shredders. So it's this awesome snowboarding game. We're going to look in editor, look at how they did their like environment generation, all the snow shader effects and all that kind of stuff. We're going to get really technical. So that's coming up too. That's Unity Tech on Twitch. So it's Let's Playtest on YouTube and Unity Tech on Twitch. How does Let's Play select their games? That's a good question. We kind of just see like so like, for example, the Steam Next Festival is coming up. We just look for like really cool unreleased demos that are like obviously working towards something, so that our feedback is actually would be put to good use or something. It's kind of random right now. Eventually, we'd like to take audience suggestions when our audience is big enough.
On an unrelated note, I don't suppose you have any kind of like a Patreon or something that game devs could send you to kind of push themselves up the list a little bit,
We do have a Patreon, but we're not pushing it right now. It's just there. If you want to join that, you'll join our Discord community. It's very small right now, but we'll push that eventually. Right now, we just want people to enjoy the content. We're not expecting them to pay anything, but yeah. But that is a good point. In the future, part of one of the tier benefits is if you join the Patreon, you can suggest which games you want to be played on the channel. That's actually one of the benefits of the Patreon subscription that's up there. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's everything.
Yeah, go subscribe.
Yeah, and check out that game. Axolotl looks awesome.
The name alone.
If you haven't already subscribed, go check it out. Saying go subscribe. If you haven't already done it, you definitely should.
Thank you so much.
I guess the last thing I wanted to say is Salim is making a YouTube channel today, right?
I already have a YouTube channel, man.
And you're gonna start posting your videos now?
How many videos?
Yeah, I've had enough of you using that excuse. If you keep saying you have a channel, no, just the fact that it exists doesn't count. You have to start making videos for it. That's the thing. So make sure, Jason, next time you ask the question, he's saying he's putting out videos for it, because he's gonna keep cheating you with that. I have a channel.
Soon. Cool. All right.
Someday, somehow, some way, it'll happen.
What we need to do is we need to find a game that one of us loves and the other one hates, and then just have a really long rant and play the game, and that can be your first video to launch the channel.
That's not a bad idea. Playing all this retro stuff, I just keep finding my passion about these games and realizing that there are these old concepts that modern day games either try to recreate and don't realize they've been done before or just completely ignore.
Actually, again, just a small tangent because I knew you'd get a kick out of this. Are you on retro achievements?
I need to hook that up. I remember you brought it up a couple weeks ago. I need to hook it up.
Definitely hook that up.
Mister, I can't use it because the Mister doesn't have a notion of logging in.
Right.
But I need to.
Hey, when you get your IO, then definitely set that up, because for those who don't know, Retro Achievements is a third-party service where people have registered achievements for old games like SNES and PlayStation and all that. And so you have an online board. You and your friends can all play old games and still have achievements and then check each other's scores and stuff. So it's a really fun way to retroactively across a huge library of games have a fun social thing to it.
Like beat Ninja Gaiden on a NES. That should be everyone's target achievement.
Well, I'm currently on Earthbound, so that's my I have achievements to get there first.
I started replaying that as well. God, such a good game. Man. All right, I'm going to go play that right now, actually.
All right, guys. So I'm falling apart and I'm losing the whole conversation. So I'm gonna hit the button and say goodbye to everybody for this week. Please subscribe, share, check out all the links down below and all that stuff. And we'll see you again next week.